Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tomorrow Revenge, where you can witness the power of women. Please follow us to hear today's story. The curbside departure lane smelled like exhaust and desperation. My suitcase hit the pavement with a thud that echoed in the chilly, pre-dawn air. Vanessa, wait, just 1 hour. I'm begging you. My sister didn't even look at me. Her designer sunglasses were absurdly perched on her head in the darkness. I'm not missing my flight. Lexi, again, I'm done. It's not a party or some random job, I said, my voice tight. This is important. National. Important. She spun, her perfectly highlighted hair whipping around. Everything's important with you. Alexis, the big break in Vegas that was a pyramid scheme. The can't-miss opportunity in Portland that left you stranded. The life-changing addition that required my credit card for headshots. She wasn't wrong, not about the patterns she saw. The cover stories my handlers fabricated were designed to make me look flaky, unreliable, a perfect camouflage for someone who needed to disappear for weeks at a time. It worked too well. This is different, I insisted, my eyes darting toward the terminal doors. My phone, currently buried in my bag, had vibrated with the specific pattern that meant an urgent, encrypted alert. My chest tightened. Just give me 60 minutes. I'll get my own ride after. You won't ever have to do this again. 60 minutes is the difference between making my connection to Miami and not. Vanessa snapped, yanking her carry-on from the trunk. David planned this weekend for months. I am not showing up 6 hours late because you, yet again, failed to plan your life. It's not my life. It's my work. Your work. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You mean the bartending gig you quit last week? Or the dog walking thing before that? What is it this time, Lexi? A wellness influencer retreat? A secret shopper assignment? The condescension in her voice was a physical ache. For 3 years, I'd let her believe it. For 3 years, I'd swallowed every lecture, every sigh, every disappointed look from our parents, all for operational security. The Sentinels program didn't exist. My work, deciphering the chatter of groups, like the gray wolves, tracing the digital fingerprints of nightmares before they happened, didn't exist. I was a ghost, and ghosts don't get to be understood. You have no idea what I do, I said, the words coming out low and harder than I intended. I have every idea, she shot back, slamming the trunk shut. The sound was too loud. You're 24 years old, living off sporadic paychecks and the generosity of people who are tired of bailing you out. Mom and Dad are embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. Grow up. She turned to go. Panic, cold and sharp, sliced through me. The alert on my phone was screaming silently in my bag. Something was wrong. Protocol Sierra, levels of wrong. Vanessa, if you leave me here right now, people could die. It was the closest I'd ever come to the truth. I saw her back stiffen. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she glanced over her shoulder. Her expression, a mask of pure, unadulterated frustration. You're unbelievable. Even now, it's a dramatic, life or death story. You're not the center of the universe. Lexi, the world does not stop because you're irresponsible. She didn't wait for a reply, heels clicking a furious staccato on the pavement. She marched through the automatic doors and vanished into the bright terminal. I stood there, alone at the curb, the airport sighed around me, a distant plane taking off, a shuttle bus hissing to a stop further down. The loneliness was instant and absolute. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers numb. The screen glowed with a single, Priority 1 message, decrypted automatically by the secure chip. Alert, Sierra. Compromise, likely. Extraction team deployed. ETA to primary extract site. Coordinates attached. 30 minutes. Avoid standing protocols. Assume you are burned. Assume you are hunted. The words blurred for a heartbeat. Compromise, burned, hunted, the gray wolves. They'd found me. How? My head snapped up, scanning the curbside. A few weary travelers, a couple hugging goodbye, a janitor slowly pushing a cart. All normal, all potential threats. My planned extraction was in 2 hours. From a private hangar on the north side, Sierra Protocol moved it up and changed the location. They wouldn't do that unless the threat was immediate. Unless my cover was completely blown. I had to move. The coordinates led to the south side cargo lots. A 15-minute walk if I went through the terminals. Longer if I took the perimeter. The terminals were a gauntlet of cameras and choke points. The perimeter was dark, isolated, and exposed. I slung my bag over my shoulder. The innocuous backpack containing a change of clothes, a paperback, and buried beneath a fake bottom, a ceramic Glock 19 and 3 encrypted devices. I started walking briskly away from the bright lights, toward the service road that skirted the airport's edge. My mind raced. How had they made me? My last decryption had cracked the Grey Wolves' new financial network. I'd traced the money to shell companies in Cyprus. Had I gotten too close? Left a digital fingerprint? Or was it something simpler, more devastating? A leak from the inside. A black SUV with tinted windows turned slowly onto the service road ahead, its headlights cutting through the gloom. It was moving too slowly for a passenger vehicle at this hour. Instincts, honed by hundreds of hours of training I could never acknowledge, kicked in. I ducked behind a row of luggage containers, my heart hammering against my ribs. I peered through a gap. The SUV idled about 50 yards away. The passenger window rolled down. A man scanned the area. He was speaking into a comms unit. I couldn't see his face clearly, but the posture was all wrong for airport security. It was tactical, alert, hunting. They were here already. The SUV crept forward. They were sweeping the area, looking for me. My original plan, a rideshare to a neutral location, then a switch to an agency car, was ashes. Sierra extraction was my only play. I had to get to that cargo lot. I moved, keeping the containers between me and the SUV. I needed to get off the service road. I remembered the maps I'd studied during contingency drills. There was an old storm drain access path that cut toward the south runways, hidden by scrub brush. I found the break in the fence, partly overgrown. Slipping through, I entered a narrow, concrete-lined ditch. The sound of my own breathing was loud in the confined space. I pulled out the secure phone, a rugged, nondescript block. "Command, this is Sentinel Actual." I whispered, the code name feeling alien on my lips. I rarely used it live. "I am eyes on with one potential hostile vehicle at my drop point, proceeding to Sierra Extract on foot. Request eyes in the sky and threat confirmation." A voice, clipped and calm, came through instantly. "Mitchell, Sentinel, we confirm hostile signals intelligence in your vicinity. Your biometric signature was flagged at terminal arrival cameras. They're painting the airport. Move with extreme prejudice. Sierra team is inbound. Hold the point." Biometric signature. They'd hacked the airport security system. This was a professional, well-resourced hunt. Understood. Eta, 27 minutes. Hold the point. Sentinel, your package is critical. The package was the final decryption key, the one that would unlock the Grey Wolves' operational plan for today. Mitchell believed it was for a symbolic bombing in New York. My last analysis suggested something different, something wet, something that spread. I hadn't had time to confirm it. "Command, the package intel may be mislabeled. I suspect a CBRN threat. Repeat, chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear. The financial trails point to specialized procurement, not conventional explosives." A pause. Mitchell's voice tightened. "Noted. Your analysis is priority 1. Get to the extract. Command out." I shoved the phone away and ran, the backpack thumping against my spine. The ditch opened up near a chain-link fence separating the airport proper from the sprawling, dimly lit cargo lots. The coordinates led to Lot D7, an area marked for pending demolition, perfect for a quiet helicopter landing. I scaled the fence, the metal cold and vibrating slightly from the distant rumble of jets. Dropping down on the other side, I crouched in the shadows of a decaying warehouse. Lot D7 was a flat expanse of cracked asphalt about 200 yards away, dotted with the skeletal remains of old shipping containers. It was empty. No helicopter, no friendly faces, just wind whistling through broken pallets. "Hold the point." I checked my watch. 18 minutes, an eternity. Then, headlights, not from the service road, but from the main airport entrance to the cargo area. A familiar silver BMW sedan. My blood went cold. Vanessa, she drove slowly, her face visible in the dashboard glow, peering out at the numbered lots. She stopped near the warehouse, looking lost and furious. She'd come back. Why? Guilt? A final, crushing insult. Then I saw it. In her hand, waving like a white flag of surrender, was my passport. I'd left it on her passenger seat. In my rush and panic, I'd forgotten it. She'd driven all the way back, not to apologize, but to deliver the ultimate proof of my incompetence. She probably thought she'd find me weeping at the curb. Instead, she'd driven straight into the kill zone. The black SUV from the service road nosed slowly into the far end of the lot. It stopped. The doors didn't open. They'd seen her. They'd seen her car. They'd run the plates. They'd know she was Vanessa Morgan, sister of Alexis Morgan. They'd know she was connected to me. She was a liability now, a loose end. In the gray wolves world, loose ends were snipped off. Vanessa got out of her car, the interior light making her a perfect target. She slammed the door, clutching my passport, and yelled into the darkness, "Lexi, God, you were so pathetic. Hiding out here? Get over here and take your stupid passport. I'm not your delivery service." Her voice echoed across the empty lot. The men in the SUV would be smiling. I had a choice. I could stay hidden. The Sierra extract was for me alone. Protocol was clear. Under compromise, no non-assets. Civilians were not my responsibility. The mission was. I watched her, standing there in her expensive jeans and silk blouse, so angry, so utterly clueless about the world she'd stepped into. The sister who'd mocked me, dismissed me, abandoned me. The sister who used to let me sleep in her bed when I had nightmares. Damn it. I breathed. I broke from cover, sprinting across the open asphalt. "Vanessa, get down!" She saw me, her eyes widening in surprise, then irritation. "What are you?" The passenger window of the SUV exploded, not with a gunshot, but with the distinct thwump off a suppressed rifle. A bullet sparked off the asphalt a foot from Vanessa's heel. This time, she heard it. The reality of violence, so different from courtroom dramas, crashed into her. Her scream was cut short as I tackled her behind the relative cover of her BMW's engine block. "What is happening?" she shrieked, struggling against me. "Who are those? Shut up and stay down." I barked, the voice I used in tactical briefings, the one that brooked no argument. It worked. She froze, her eyes huge with terror. I risked a glance. 2 men were exiting the SUV, moving with disciplined, military precision. One provided cover with a compact assault rifle. The other advanced, his weapon scanning. They weren't police. They weren't airport security. They were contractors, mercenaries, the Grey Wolves cleanup crew. I yanked my gun from the backpack. The familiar weight was a cold comfort. Vanessa gasped. "You have a gun? Lexi, what have you done?" "Saved your life." I snapped, chambering around. "Now, in about 90 seconds, a helicopter is going to land right over there." I nodded toward the center of Lot D7. "When I say run, you run like hell and get on it. Do not look back. Do not argue." "A helicopter? What are you talking about? I'm calling the police." She fumbled for her phone. I snatched it from her hand and crushed it under my heel. "They've already compromised the local networks. A police call is a death sentence. They'll know exactly where we are." Her face was a mask of utter confusion and terror. The world as she knew it, a world of depositions, client meetings, and brunch dates, had just been obliterated. The advancing mercenary was 50 yards away. I took a breath, steadied my hands on the car's hood, and fired twice. Pop, pop. The shots were loud, unsuppressed. The first went wide, pinging off the SUV. The second hit the advancing man in the thigh. He went down with a grunt, his partner dragging him behind the vehicle. I'd bought us seconds, not minutes, and then I heard it, a deep, rhythmic thump, thump, thump that grew from a vibration in the bones to a roar that swallowed the sky. Vanessa looked up. Barreling out of the low cloud cover, blacker than the night, came a Sikorsky UH-60 BLACKHAWK helicopter. It wasn't a sleek, civilian model. It was a military-grade bird, its hull angular and menacing, its rotor wash kicking up a hurricane of dust and debris as it flared to land in the center of Lot D7. The side door slid open, and 3 figures in full tactical gear, helmets obscuring their faces, weapons ready, leaped out and established a perimeter. The mercenaries by the SUV didn't hesitate. They opened fire. Muzzle flashes lit up the night. The sharp, staccato cracks of rifle fire were almost drowned by the helicopter's roar. The tactical team by the Black Hawk returned fire, disciplined, controlled bursts. Now, I grabbed Vanessa's arm, hauling her to her feet. She was paralyzed, staring at the scene like it was a movie. The helicopter, the soldiers, the gunfire, her baby sister holding a gun. "Vanessa, move!" I shoved her, and she stumbled into a run. We broke from behind the car, sprinting across the open ground toward the waiting helicopter. Dust and grit stung my eyes. Bullets whizzed past, one tearing through the sleeve of my jacket. A soldier waved us forward. "Sentinel, on me!" We reached the open door. Strong hands grabbed Vanessa and practically threw her inside. I turned, providing what cover I could, firing 2 more rounds toward the SUV. The mercenaries were falling back, one dragging the wounded man. The tactical team was advancing, suppressing them. I climbed into the Black Hawk. The interior was all hard surfaces, webbing, and the smell of oil and adrenaline. Vanessa was huddled on the deck, shaking, her designer clothes covered in grime. I turned to the team leader, pulling off my helmet. "We're clear. Go, go, go." The soldier nodded, shouting into his headset. The helicopter's engines whined, the pitch rising. We lifted off, the asphalt falling away, the SUV shrinking to a toy below. I sank onto a hard jump seat, my hands trembling now that the immediate danger had passed. I took a deep breath, the recycled, metallic air of the helicopter filling my lungs. Then I looked at my sister. Vanessa was staring at me. The terror in her eyes had been joined by something else, something deeper, more profound, a dawning, horrifying comprehension. The lies, the missed holidays, the erratic behavior, the constant disappointment, it was all collapsing, rearranging itself into a picture she couldn't yet comprehend, but whose terrifying outline was now clear. She looked from my face to the gun I was safely reholstering, to the heavily armed soldiers around us, to the sprawling, twinkling grid of Los Angeles shrinking beneath us. Her mouth opened, then closed. All the cutting remarks, the lawyerly cross-examinations, the years of condescension, they were gone, stripped away by the roar of helicopter blades and the smell of cordite. When she finally spoke, her voice was a thin, broken thread, barely audible over the engine's scream. "Alexis," she whispered, "what in God's name have you gotten yourself into?" I met her gaze, the weight of 3 years of secrecy pressing down on me. The mission was compromised. My cover was gone. And my sister, the person who knew the fictional me better than anyone, was now in the heart of the truth. "It's not what I've gotten into, Vanessa," I said, my voice flat with exhaustion. "It's what I've been trying to get us out of." The team leader handed me a secure satellite handset. "Command for you, Sentinel. They have a preliminary briefing, and they're requesting verbal confirmation of the civilian asset." I took the handset, my eyes still locked with my sister's. Her face, pale and smudged with dirt, was a monument to shattered normalcy. "This is Sentinel," I said into the receiver. "Package is secure. 1 non-compliant civilian asset acquired during extract. Asset is family. She's been compromised by visual identification. Requesting full sanctuary protocol." Vanessa flinched at the word asset. Mitchell's voice crackled through. "Tense. Understood. Sentinel. Sanctuary granted. New heading is Sierra Base. Medical and debrief on arrival." And Sentinel, "We've analyzed the fragment you sent before extraction. You were right. It's not New York. The target is D.C. The timer is at T-3 hours and 17 minutes. It's a wet attack. VX class nerve agent. In the water supply." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. VX in the Washington, D.C. water supply, millions of people, a political, economic, and human catastrophe of unthinkable proportions. "The key I extracted," I said, my mouth dry. "It's the dispersal inhibitor code. It can remotely disable the injection systems, but I need the primary location to input it." We're working on that, Mitchell said, but his voice lacked its usual iron certainty. There was a hesitation, a static-filled pause. Just get here, Mitchell out. The line went dead. I handed the handset back, my mind racing. The Grey Wolves had targeted the most secure city on Earth. They'd need inside help, significant help, the kind that reached into places with high clearances. I looked at Vanessa. She was hugging herself, rocking slightly, her eyes wide and unseeing. The woman who'd lectured me about maturity and responsibility was gone, replaced by a shell-shocked survivor. Vanessa, I said, leaning close so she could hear me over the roar. I need you to listen very carefully. You can't unsee this. You're in it now. Those men back there, they saw your face, your car. They will find you. The only place on Earth that's safe for you right now is with me. Do you understand? She didn't respond for a long moment. Then, slowly, she turned her head. The fear was still there, but beneath it, I saw a spark, the same stubborn, analytical spark that made her a killer lawyer. It was focused on me now, not with disdain, but with a fierce, desperate need to understand. Who are you? She asked. Not what, but who. I took a deep breath. The lies were over. My name is Alexis Morgan. I work for the National Security Agency, Special Collection Service, Sentinel Program. I break codes for a living, the ones that bad people use to plan very bad things. And right now, I'm the only person on this helicopter who can stop thousands of people from dying in the next 3 hours. The words hung in the air between us. The truth, raw and unbelievable. Vanessa stared at me. I watched the denial fight the evidence, the helicopter, the soldiers, the gunfire, the absolute authority in my voice. The evidence won. Her shoulders slumped, not in defeat, but in the immense weight of a paradigm shift. All those times, she whispered. Vegas, Portland, you're irresponsible. Jobs, cover stories. I said quietly to explain the travel, the disappearances. A single, hysterical laugh escaped her. It was edged with tears. Mom and Dad, all the things I said to you. It's okay. It was supposed to look that way. I reached out tentatively and put a hand over hers. It was ice cold, but I need you to be strong now. Stronger than you've ever been. I need the Vanessa who wins impossible cases, because I have to stop this. And I think someone inside my own team is trying to make sure I don't. Her eyes snapped to mine. The lawyer in her was fully engaged now, pushing past the shock. A traitor? A leap? A compromise? Something. I glanced at the stoic tactical team. Were they loyal? Was Mitchell? The hesitation in his voice. When we land, you'll be taken to a secure area. You'll be asked questions. Tell them everything you saw. But Vanessa, trust no one. Do you hear me? No one but me. She searched my face, looking for the little sister she thought she knew. She didn't find her. She found someone else, someone older, harder, and scared in a way a barista or a dog walker never could be. Slowly, she turned her hand under mine and gripped it, her fingers tight. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't an apology. It was an anchor, a pact. Okay, she said, the word almost lost in the engine's thunder. Then, louder, with a flicker of her old steel. Okay, what do we do? We, the most beautiful word I'd heard in years. I squeezed her hand back. First, we land. Then, we find a traitor. And then, I said, looking out the window at the first hints of dawn bleeding onto the horizon, we save a city. The BLACKHAWK banked, turning east, chasing the night toward a nightmare only I could decipher. And for the first time, I wasn't alone. The BLACKHAWK's interior was a world of controlled chaos. I strapped Vanessa into a jump seat, her fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar harness. The tactical team, call signs Rook, Bishop, and Knight, had said nothing beyond terse status reports since liftoff. Their faces were obscured by helmets and tactical visors, but their body language was clear. The civilian was a problem. Vanessa gripped my arm, her nails digging in. Where are they taking us? Her voice was a strained whisper, barely audible over the engine roar. A secure facility, Sierra Base. I checked the GPS display on a bulkhead screen. We were over the desert, heading northeast, deep in the Mojave. Off the books. Off the books, she repeated, the phrase tasting foreign. Lexi, those men, they were shooting to kill. Yes. I met her gaze, holding it. They weren't police. They were contractors, probably ex-special forces, hired by the people I'm trying to stop. The Grey Wolves. She'd heard the name on the phone. Who are they? a transnational terror cell. They used to be small-time, ideological, nationalist. Then new leadership took over about 3 years ago. More funding, more sophisticated. They've been linked to the Ankara bombing, the Berlin cyber attack on the power grid. I paused. The next part was need to know, but she needed to know. Their new leader, they call him the architect. He's a ghost. No photos, no voice prints, no financial trail, but he's a strategic genius. This, Washington, it's his masterpiece. Vanessa processed this, her legal mind latching onto details. And you stopped them by breaking their codes. I find patterns in the noise, financial transfers, encrypted chat logs, shipping manifests. I follow the money, the words, the ones and zeros, until they paint a picture. I looked at my hands. They were steady now, the calm after the operational storm. The picture for today was a massive, coordinated strike. We thought it was New York, high-profile targets. I was wrong. The financials I traced, they weren't for explosives. They were for industrial-grade filtration bypass systems, custom polymer tubing, and a specific, tightly controlled precursor chemical used in VX synthesis. It pointed to a waterborne delivery. She paled. The water supply. You can't be serious. I wish I weren't. D.C. pulls from the Potomac and a series of reservoirs. The treatment plants have multiple redundancies, but they're not designed for a targeted insider attack injecting a persistent nerve agent directly into the post-treatment flow. VX is viscous, oily. It doesn't dilute well. It would coat pipes, fixtures, first responders, people showering, hospitals. It would be a slaughter. The reality of it seemed to hit her physically. She bent over, taking deep, ragged breaths. Oh, God. Hey. I put a hand on her back. Listen to me. I have the key. The dispersal systems they're using have a remote kill switch, a failsafe in case they lose control or need to abort. My decryption gave us the access protocol. It's a 12-factor algorithmic key. I can shut it down, but I need to be at a terminal hardwired into the Sentinel mainframe to generate it. And I need to know the exact physical location of the primary injection point to target the signal. We have one. We're missing the other. And the traitor, she said, straightening up. Her eyes were red, but clear. The shock was receding, replaced by a sharp, focused intensity one recognized. It was her cross-examination face. You think someone at your base is working for them. That's why they knew you'd be at the airport. That's why they were waiting. I nodded. My extract was moved to Sierra Protocol, the emergency plan. Only 4 people knew the exact time and coordinates. Commander Mitchell, Deputy Director Croft, and the 2 pilots of this bird. The leak is at the top. Mitchell, she said, remembering his voice on the phone. He's in charge. My direct superior. He's been with the program for a decade. He recruited me. The thought soured in my gut. Mitchell, who'd sat with me after my first hard mission, who'd told me the weight I felt was the price of keeping the world a little safer. Could it all have been an act, motive? Vanessa asked, the lawyer probing. Money, ideology, coercion, ego, the classic quartet. We'll know when we confront him. I glanced at the team leader, Rook, who was monitoring communications. We don't confront him yet. We play the game. When we land, you'll be taken to a secure interview room. They'll debrief you, tell them exactly what happened. Stick to the facts. You saw me at the airport. You came back. You saw armed men. A helicopter rescued us. You don't know why. You're scared. Be the confused civilian. It won't be hard. A faint, grim smile touched her lips. I can do confused. It faded. What about you? I have to get to the ops center, access the mainframe, and pinpoint that injection site. The intelligence we gathered during the airport attack, the comm signals from that SUV, the biometric hit on the airport cameras. It'll all be feeding into the system. There will be a trail. I just have to find it before the clock runs out. And if Mitchell is the traitor, he won't just let you. No, I agreed. Quietly, he won't. Rook turned, his voice filtered through his helmet speaker. Sentinel, 5 minutes. Commander Mitchell is on the secure line for you. He handed me a headset. I took it, exchanging a look with Vanessa. Showtime. I fitted the headset. Mitchell, go ahead. Sentinel. His voice was all business, the warmth I was used to entirely absent. Status on the civilian. Shaken but coherent. She'll need the full sanitization briefing, and sanctuary paperwork. It's being prepared. Her presence complicates an already critical situation. The D.C. threat is confirmed. Homeland is panicking. The White House is 5 minutes from being told. We need that location. Lexi, the key is useless without it. I'm aware, I said, keeping my tone neutral. I'll need full, unrestricted access to the mainframe, and I'll need the raw data dump from the airport. Their attempt to grab me is the biggest lead we have. They wouldn't have exposed themselves unless the D.C. op was too fragile to risk my interference. Their movements will give us a vector. A pause, just a fraction of a second too long. The airport data is being processed by a separate team. I'll have a summary for you. A summary, filtered, curated, potentially altered, negative. Commander, I need the raw feed. The patterns I look for, they're in the metadata. The signal ghosts. A summary won't cut it. Sentinel protocol gives me that authority during an active Sierra-level threat. I was pushing, testing. Another pause. I could almost hear him weighing options. Of course, you'll have it. We're all on the same team here. Lexi, I know the last hour has been traumatic, but we need you focused. I'm focused, sir, on stopping the attack. See you on the ground. I ended the call before he could reply. I handed the headset back to Rook. His visored face was unreadable. He doesn't want me seeing the raw data, I said softly to Vanessa. So he's compromised. Or he's just being a controlling bureaucrat in a crisis. I need proof. I leaned closer to her, my voice a bare murmur. When they debrief you, they'll log it. The system will be the standard federal repository, but it'll have a Sentinel-level backend access portal. I need you to get a look at the terminal they use, the login screen. Tell me the system ID. It'll be a string of letters and numbers in the top corner. Can you do that? She looked at me as if I'd asked her to perform brain surgery. You want me, during a terrorist debriefing, to memorize a computer code? You remember case law citations better than anyone I know. This is a string of 12 characters. It's a backdoor. If Mitchell is dirty, he'll have locked me out of critical feeds. That system ID might get me a back channel into the raw airport data. She swallowed, then gave a tight, professional nod. 12 characters. I'll get it. Don't take risks. If it seems suspicious, abort. Your safety is the priority. She almost laughed. A brittle sound, says the woman who just got me shot at. A little late for that. Lex, the old nickname, unused for years, hung in the air between us. Before I could respond, the helicopter's descent became abrupt. We were going down fast. Through the window, the world was a blur of ochre and gray, the endless, wrinkled skin of the Mojave. Then, a patch of desert that seemed no different from the rest suddenly yawned open. A massive, circular concrete ramp descended into the earth, lit by recessed blue lights. The BLACKHAWK dove into the opening, and the sky vanished, replaced by the curved ceiling of an immense underground hangar. We touched down with a gentle bump. The roar of the engines shifted to a winding whine. The side door slid open, revealing a cavernous space humming with activity. Technicians in headsets moved between workstations. A row of other aircraft, some sleek and unmarked, sat in neat bays. The air was cool, filtered, and smelled of concrete and jet fuel. Two serious-looking men in dark suits, not military fatigues, approached. Security. Ms. Morgan, one said to Vanessa, his voice polite but devoid of warmth. If you'd come with us, please. We have a few questions. Vanessa shot me a look, a mix of fear and determination. I gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Remember the string? She stood, smoothing her ruined blouse with a trembling hand, a gesture of pure habit. Then she lifted her chin. The Vanessa Morgan who argued before the Ninth Circuit Court, emerging from the shell-shocked woman. Lead the way, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. They escorted her away. I watched her go, a knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. Sentinel. Rook had removed his helmet. He was younger than I expected, with sharp blue eyes and a shaved head. Commander Mitchell is waiting for you in the ops center. I'm to escort you. I know the way. Rook. New protocols, ma'am. After the compromise, no one moves unattended. Of course, I fell into step beside him, my boots echoing on the polished concrete. The Sierra Base Op Center was the heart of the Sentinel program, a circular room, 2 stories tall, dominated by a massive holographic display table currently showing a map of the D.C. metro area, dotted with flashing red icons over water treatment plants. Dozens of analysts worked at radial desks, their faces lit by the glow of monitors. The air buzzed with low, tense conversation. Commander James Mitchell stood at the central dais, his back to me. He was in his late 50s, fit, with salt and pepper hair cut short. He wore a crisply pressed military-style shirt, but no insignia, the uniform of a ghost. "Sir," I said, approaching. He turned. His face was grave, the lines around his eyes deeper than I remembered. "Alexis, thank God you're safe." He stepped forward and clasped my shoulder. The grip was firm. The concern in his eyes seemed genuine. "When we lost your signal at the airport, we feared the worst. The protocol worked. Sir, the team was timely." I kept my voice neutral, professional. "I need access. The clock is ticking." "Of course." He gestured to a station that had been cleared for me. It was my usual spot, but the terminal was dark. "We've had to institute a new, compartmentalized access system. Your breach means your previous biometric and cryptographic keys are considered potentially corrupted. You'll need to re-authenticate. It'll just take a moment." A moment in a situation where minutes meant lives. It was a plausible security measure. It was also a perfect delay. "Understood," I said, sitting. A technician hurried over, holding a retinal scanner and a fingerprint pad. I went through the motions, my mind racing. The system booted up, asking for a new, temporary passphrase. "Use Sentinel Alpha 9er," Mitchell said, leaning over my shoulder. His breath smelled of coffee and mint. "It's a one-time cipher. It'll grant you Tier 1 access." I typed it in. The desktop resolved. I had access to the main interfaces, the decryption suites, the mapping software, but when I tried to pull the raw data feed from LAX, the unprocessed camera footage, the cellular tower dumps, the audio surveillance from the perimeter, a red banner flashed. "Access denied. Tier level insufficient." "Sir, I'm locked out of the source feeds. They're being scrubbed by the forensic team, Alexis, for evidence, and for any malware tags the hostiles might have planted. You'll have the clean, analyzed data shortly." "Sir, with respect, shortly isn't good enough. I need to see the raw intercepts. The pattern might be in the noise they filter out." His jaw tightened. "The analysis is standard procedure after a field compromise. You know that. We can't risk the entire network. Work with what you have. The clean data is being uploaded now." He pointed to a progress bar on a secondary monitor. It read, "Airport feed analysis, 87% complete. ETA, 14 minutes. 14 minutes. Then more time to review. Time we didn't have." I had to play along. "Yes, sir." I turned to the main screen, bringing up the D.C. water system schematics. "What's the latest from D.C.? Homeland has initiated Sentinel Silent. All water treatment facilities are on highest alert, but they're not shutting down. A metropolitan-wide water shutdown without confirmed cause would cause panic. Gridlock. It's a judgment call. It's the wrong call. If the agent is introduced, it'll be in the final stage, after all the standard checks. By the time they confirm it, it'll be in the pipes." My fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up the financial trails I'd been following. The shell companies, the procurement orders, the purchases were for specialized, high-pressure injection systems. They'd need to install them at a point of maximum pressure and flow, just before the water enters the main distribution lines. That means inside the primary pumping stations, not the treatment plants themselves. Mitchell nodded, his eyes on the map. "We've identified 14 primary pumping stations that serve the core D.C. and Federal District area. We have teams en route to each, but sweeping them thoroughly takes time. We need you to narrow it down." I overlaid the procurement data. The injection systems had specific power requirements. I filtered the stations by their electrical grid nodes. That brought it down to 8. Then I cross-referenced with the Grey Wolves' known logistical patterns. They favored infrastructure with older, less upgraded security systems and a history of contractor maintenance issues. For stations, these 4 I said, highlighting them on the main hologram. Macmillan, Bryant Street, Delacarlia, and the Anacostia cross pump. If I were them, I'd target one of these, probably Macmillan or Delacarlia. They're the largest, feeding the most critical zones. Good work, Mitchell said, but his eyes weren't on the stations I'd highlighted. They were flicking to a small status monitor on the dais, a private feed. I'll divert the tactical sweeps to prioritize these 4. In the meantime, generate the kill switch key. We'll need it ready to broadcast the second we have a location. I need the mainframe's quantum core to generate the final algorithm. It'll take about 7 minutes of dedicated processing. Do it. I initiated the sequence. The key generation was a beautiful, terrifying piece of cryptography. It used a fragment of the Grey Wolf's own master encryption, which I'd captured months ago, as a seed. The resulting key would be unique to this specific attack, a digital skeleton key that would tell their hardware to self-destruct. As the progress bar spun, I glanced at the airport feed analysis. 92%. My mind was only half on the key. The other half was on Vanessa. Had she seen the system ID? Was she safe? A soft chime announced a message in my secure inbox. It was internal, from the facility's administrative server. The subject line read, Visitor Debriefing Log V. Morgan, access code. My heart skipped a beat. I opened it. It was an automated notification that a debriefing file had been created. Attached was the file's metadata, and there, in the field marked Host System ID, was a string of 12 alphanumeric characters. SRV Alpha 7Z9. Vanessa. She'd done it. Now I had to use it. Mitchell was a few feet away, speaking in a low voice into his headset, coordinating the teams heading to the pumping stations. I had a small window, opening a hidden terminal emulator, a backdoor tool I'd coded for emergencies. I typed in a series of commands, accessing the base's lower-level network operations menu. I entered the system ID Vanessa had provided. It was a generic server used for low-security internal logging. But from there, if you knew the paths, you could hop to other systems. I navigated through the virtual maze, avoiding the main security gateways. I found the data server housing the scrubbed airport feed. It was indeed being processed, the raw data being fed through a filtration program, but the raw data was still there, in a buffer. I initiated a direct, encrypted copy to my local terminal, masking the transfer as routine diagnostic traffic. A progress bar appeared, much faster than the official one. Raw data transfer, 45%. Key generation at 60%. I announced to cover the furious clicking. Mitchell nodded, not looking over. The raw data finished downloading. I isolated the cellular tower dump first. The SUV that had chased us had been in the area for 20 minutes before Vanessa even arrived. They'd been waiting. They knew I'd be there. But how? I ran a trace on the vehicle. It was a rental, paid for with a stolen credit card. Dead end. I switched to the audio surveillance. The airport's perimeter had sensitive sound detection to identify gunshots or breaches. I filtered for the time window. There was the suppressed gunshot. Then, voices, amplified and cleaned up. I could hear the 2 mercenaries. Lost visual. The bird is inbound. We need to extract before the cavalry arrives. Negative. Primary order is to acquire the asset. The sister is a bonus. Eliminate both. The sister wasn't in the brief. The brief changed. New orders from the top. The sister is leverage. Grab her if you can. But the priority is the package on the asset. The package on the asset. They didn't just want to kill me. They wanted something on me. My bag. My phone. The decryption key in my brain. Then, a third voice, faint, coming over their comms. A voice giving the order. I isolated it, ran it through a voice stress and enhancement filter. The words became clear, cold, and utterly familiar. The sister is the key. She's the only thing Alexis truly cares about. Take her, and Alexis will give us everything. If you can't take her, kill her. Deny the asset, that emotional anchor. It will make her pliable. The voice was Commander James Mitchell's. The world seemed to tilt. The hum of the ops center receded to a distant buzz. I stared at the waveform on my screen. The voice sprint analysis automatically running. A 99.7% match. Mitchell, he hadn't just leaked my location. He'd ordered Vanessa to be taken or killed, to destabilize me, to make me pliable. Pliable for what? My eyes snapped to the key generation program. It was at 98%, a perfect, beautiful key that would shut down the VX attack. A key Mitchell desperately needed me to generate because if he was working for the Grey Wolves, he wouldn't want the attack stopped. He'd want it to happen. So why have me generate the kill switch? The answer crashed into me with the force of a physical blow. He didn't want to use the key. He wanted to have the key, to control it. The Grey Wolves' attack had a failsafe. What if their patron, Mitchell, wanted to ensure they couldn't back out? What if he wanted to hold the only thing that could stop their attack, thereby guaranteeing it would proceed? Or worse, what if he planned to use the key as a bargaining chip, a way to control the Grey Wolves themselves after the chaos? The key generation completed with a soft ping. Disruption key generated. Ready for deployment. Mitchell turned from his console. Is it ready? I looked at him, the man who'd trained me, trusted me, mentored me. I saw the tension in his shoulders, the too careful blankness in his eyes. He was waiting. It's ready, I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. But I need to sync it with the target location signature. The system needs the final coordinates to bind the key. A half-truth. The binding was automatic once a target was selected. We'll have the location soon, he said, taking a step toward my station. Upload the key to the secure server. I'll take it from here. That was the protocol. The field agent generates the key. The commander authorizes its use. But protocol was written before my commander became a traitor. Of course, I said. My fingers moved. I initiated an upload, but not to the main server. I routed it to a dead drop storage address, a digital hiding place only I could access. On the main screen, a fake progress bar appeared. Uploading to command server, 10%. It'll take a minute, I said, swiveling in my chair to face him fully. I needed to buy time. I needed to understand his endgame. Sir, about my sister. I'd like her moved to a more secure holding, somewhere off-site, for her safety. His expression softened into a mask of paternal concern. She's perfectly safe here. Alexis, we have her in the blue suite. It's comfortable, secure. The blue suite, an internal detention room, not a guest area. He'd already categorized her as a detainee. I'd feel better if she were elsewhere, given that the hostiles specifically targeted her. The threat is contained to the D.C. area, he said, his voice taking on a faint edge. Your focus needs to be here. The key. Alexis, is it uploaded? I glanced at the fake progress bar. 65%. Almost. Sir, the voice on the mercenaries' comms at the airport. We should run it through the vocal registry. It could give us a lead on the Grey Wolves' field command. His face went very, very still. The paternal mask slipped, revealing the cold calculation beneath. He'd heard the subtle emphasis in my voice. He knew I'd accessed the raw data. He knew I'd heard him. The ops center hummed around us, analysts oblivious. Rook stood by the door, a silent sentinel. Mitchell's hand moved slowly, almost casually, toward the sidearm holstered at his hip. It wasn't a standard issue. It was a small, sleek SIG Sauer, a personal weapon. A lead would be excellent. Sentinel, he said, his tone conversational. Deadly. Why don't you pull up the audio file? Let's analyze it together, right now. It wasn't a request, it was a command and a test. I had seconds. The fake upload bar was at 82%. I couldn't shoot my way out. Rook was loyal to Mitchell. The entire base was Mitchell's domain. My eyes darted to the main hologram. The 4 pumping stations glowed. Macmillan, Bryant Street, Delacarlia, Anacostia. One of them was the target. I had the key, but I didn't have the location. And Mitchell, the traitor, did. I had to get to Vanessa and get out. I had to get the true location to someone outside Mitchell's control. I made a decision. It was reckless, stupid, and the only play I had. I reached for my keyboard, as if to pull up the audio file. Instead, my fingers flew, executing a pre-programmed command sequence. A failsafe I'd coded into the system a year ago, paranoid even by Sentinel standards. Every screen in the ops center, the main hologram, the analyst stations, Mitchell's command dais, flashed brilliant white, then went black. A deafening, piercing alarm blared through the room. Red emergency lights began to strobe. System malfunction. Containment protocol engaged. A synthetic voice boomed. Fire suppression imminent. It was a lie, a digital smoke bomb, but it caused the exact half-second of chaos I needed. Analysts shouted, recoiling from their dead terminals. Mitchell spun, drawing his sidearm, looking for a threat. I was already moving. I vaulted over my console, snatching the physical hardware token, a small, shielded drive that contained the generated kill switch key from its slot. I shoved it into my pocket. "Stop her!" Mitchell roared, bringing his pistol up. But Rook was between us, his own weapon drawn. But he was looking at Mitchell, not at me, confusion on his face. "Commander, what's the threat?" "She's compromised. She's sabotaging the system. Detain her!" Mitchell yelled. Rook turned toward me, his weapon rising. But the hesitation was there. He'd heard the raw fear, the rage in Mitchell's voice. It didn't match the situation. I didn't wait. I sprinted for the blast door leading out of the ops center. It was beginning to slide shut automatically. Part of the fake containment protocol. "Seal the doors!" Mitchell shouted into his comms. "Idove," sliding under the descending titanium door just as it slammed shut with a final, resonant clang, sealing the ops center and trapping everyone inside. I was in the corridor, alone. The blaring alarm echoed off the concrete walls. I had maybe 2 minutes before they overrode the lockdown or used manual releases. I knew where the blue suite was. Detention was on sublevel 3. I ran, the key burning a hole in my pocket, Mitchell's voice echoing in my head. "She's the key. She's the only thing Alexis truly cares about." He was right, and he was going to use her to get to me, to get to the key. The race was no longer just to save Washington. It was to save my sister. The corridor lights flickered red with the strobe of the alarm. My breathing was loud in the confined space, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. 2 minutes, maybe less. I knew Sierra Base's layout from endless drills. The ops center was the hub. Branching off, it were the research wings, barracks, and the secure detention block, sublevel 3. The blue suite. It was a euphemism. The rooms were sterile, soundproofed cubes, used for high-value defectors or, apparently, inconvenient civilians. I hit the stairwell door at a run, taking the concrete steps 2 and 3 at a time, descending into the bowels of the facility. The alarm was muffled here, replaced by the echo of my own footsteps. I had no weapon. My service pistol was still in my pack, which was likely being dusted for prints in an evidence locker. Mitchell's order to detain me would be spreading through the base's security net. My biometrics were everywhere, every door, every camera, as if on cue. A calm, synthesized female voice emanated from hidden speakers. "Security alert. Sentinel actual. Alexis Morgan. Your access privileges are suspended. Please report to the nearest security station. This is not a request." They'd revoked my clearance. I was a ghost in the machine now, an intruder in my own home. I burst out onto sublevel 3. The corridor here was narrower, lit by cold, fluorescent bars. At the far end, I could see the reinforced door to the detention block, flanked by a card reader and a keypad. A security camera above the door swiveled silently, its red LED winking at me. They'd see me coming. I had no card, no code. I needed a distraction. My eyes scanned the hallway, conduit pipes, fire extinguisher, an electrical panel. The panel was locked, but it was a standard federal issue lock. I'd picked worse during field exercises, pulling 2 bobby pins from my hair, a habit Vanessa had always mocked as messy. I knelt before the panel. My hands, slick with sweat, trembled. I forced them still. Listen for the click. 30 seconds. The camera watched, unblinking. A soft snick. The panel door swung open. Inside was a tangle of color-coded wires for the sublevel's lighting and non-essential systems. I wasn't an electrician, but I knew how to create chaos. I found the main feeder line for the corridor lights. With a grimace, I yanked a handful of wires, twisting them together. A shower of sparks erupted from the panel. With a loud pop, the fluorescent bars in the hallway flickered and died, plunging the corridor into near-total darkness. The emergency strips along the floor glowed a weak amber, providing just enough light to see shapes. The camera's red light died too. Its feed was probably now static. I moved quickly down the hall, staying low. The detention block door was a slab of gray metal. I pressed my ear to it. No sound from within. The keypad glowed softly. A 6-digit code. I had one shot. Sierra Base had standardized codes for non-critical areas, rotated weekly. This week's code was, my mind raced. It was based on the date and a prime number algorithm. Today was the 17th. The prime was 19. The code was usually the day times the prime. Reversed. 17x 19 equals 323. Reversed. 323. I punched in 323323. The keypad beeped red. Access denied. Damn, they'd changed it. Of course they had. Mitchell was locking me out. I heard boot steps on the stairs behind me. Security was coming. Think, the code for my personal locker, the one in the ops center, was Vanessa's birthday, 0828. Mitchell knew that. He'd signed off on my personal info. Would he use something personal, thinking I'd try it? Or would he assume I'd think that and choose something else? The boot steps were closer. I had one more try before the system locked me out completely. I thought of Mitchell, arrogant, methodical. He loved chess. He saw moves ahead. He'd expect me to try Vanessa's birthday. He'd expect me to try the old standard code. He'd choose something I wouldn't guess, but that he could remember under pressure. My own birthday, the day he'd recruited me, the day his asset came online. I punched in 0921. My birthday, September 21 SD. The keypad beefed green. A heavy magnetic clunk a code from within the door. I pushed, and it swung open silently. The detention block was a short hallway with 3 doors on each side, all featureless gray metal. A single guard sat at a desk at the far end, reading a tablet. He looked up, startled, as the door opened into darkness. "Hey, the lights are out there," he began. Standing, I was already moving. I couldn't afford a fight, couldn't afford him raising an alarm. As he rounded the desk, I feinted left, then ducked right, grabbing the heavy tactical flashlight from his belt. Before he could react, I swung it in a short, sharp arc. It connected with the side of his head with a sickening thud. He crumpled, unconscious. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, catching him and lowering him to the floor. I took his keycard and his sidearm, a standard-issue Glock 17. The weight in my hand was a cold comfort. Which room was Vanessa in? The doors had no windows. I pressed my ear to the first one. Silence. The second, I heard a faint, rhythmic tapping, a nervous habit she'd had since college, tapping her fingernails. I swiped the guard's keycard. The magnetic lock disengaged. Vanessa was sitting on a narrow cot, her back against the wall. The room was small, bare, with a sink and a toilet in the corner. She sprang to her feet as I entered, her eyes wide with fear that turned to confusion. Then alarm. "Lexi, what's going on?" "The alarms, the lights went out." "No time," I said, grabbing her arm. "We have to go, now." "Go? What are you talking about?" "The 2 men who brought me here, they were polite. They said I just had to wait for processing. They were lying. Mitchell is the traitor. He's working with the Grey Wolves. He ordered those men at the airport to take you or kill you." The color drained from her face. "The commander? Your boss? But why?" "I don't know yet, but he has the location of the attack, and he's not sharing it. He wanted me to generate the kill switch, but not to use it. I think he wants to control it. We have to get out of here, get to someone we can trust, and stop this." Shouts echoed from the stairwell. Boots pounded on the concrete. They'd found the disabled camera and the guard. "They're coming," I said, shoving the Glock into the waistband of my jeans at the small of my back and pulling my jacket over it. "Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say." We slipped back into the dark hallway. The security team was at the far end, flashlights cutting beams through the gloom. 4 of them. They hadn't seen us yet. "This way," I hissed, pulling Vanessa in the opposite direction, toward a service door marked maintenance. Authorized personnel only. The keycard worked. We ducked inside just as a voice shouted, "Down here, check the cells." The maintenance room was a cluttered space of pipes, toolboxes, and spare parts. A large schematic of the base's ventilation system was pinned to a wall. My eyes raced over it. Sierra Base was a closed system. Air was filtered and recycled. The only ways out were the main vehicle ramp, the helipad, and the emergency ventilation shafts. The vehicle ramp would be sealed, shut, and heavily guarded. The helipad was on the surface, a kill zone. The vents, they were large enough for a person, at least the main trunks. They led to surface exhaust ports, disguised as rock formations in the desert. There, I pointed to a section of the schematic. Main air trunk A7. It leads to an exhaust port about a half-mile north of here. It's a straight shot, but there are filters and fans. You want us to crawl through an air duct? Vanessa whispered, horrified. You have a better idea? They'll have every exit locked down. This is the one path they won't expect. I grabbed a large wrench from a toolbox. We need to move. They'll search this room soon. I located the access panel for trunk A7. It was secured with 4 large bolts. I set to work with the wrench. The first bolt squealed in protest, but turned. The second was tighter. My hands ached. Let me, Vanessa said. She took the wrench, positioned it with a lawyer's precise leverage, and threw her weight into it. The bolt gave with a shriek. She did the same with the remaining 2. Her face set in a mask of grim determination. The sister who'd never gotten her hands dirty was gone. In her place was a survivor. The panel came loose. Behind it was a dark, square tunnel, about 4 feet by 4 feet, humming with the sound of rushing air. A cold, mechanical wind blew in our faces. You first, I said. Crawl straight. Don't stop. I'll be right behind you. Vanessa took a deep breath, then dropped to her hands and knees and crawled into the darkness. I followed, pulling the access panel mostly closed behind us. The duct was metal, ridged, and icy cold. The wind was a constant roar, pushing against us. We crawled in silence. The only sounds are ragged breathing and the scuff of our clothes on metal. After what felt like an eternity, a dim red work light appeared ahead, illuminating a massive spinning blade, a circulation fan. It was about 10 feet in diameter, spinning lazily, but with enough force to chop anything that touched it to pieces. Next to it was a maintenance walkway and a control box. We have to turn it off, I said, my voice barely carrying over the wind. How? I eyed the control box. It was on the other side of the fan. There was a narrow gap, maybe 18 inches, between the blade tips and the duct wall. It was a tight squeeze, and one slip would be fatal. I'll go, I said. No, Lexi, you can't. I'm smaller. I have a better chance. It was a lie. We were roughly the same size, but I couldn't let her do it. Not after everything. Before she could argue, I edged forward. The suction from the fan pulled at my clothes. I could see the individual blades, a blur of polished steel. I turned sideways, inching along the narrow ledge, my back pressed against the cold metal wall. The wind screamed in my ears. The blade tips whizzed past, inches from my chest. 1 step, 2. My foot slipped on a patch of condensation. I gasped, flailing, my arms pinwheeling. Vanessa screamed. I caught myself, my fingers finding a seam in the metal. My heart hammered against my ribs. I took a shuddering breath and pushed on. After an agonizing minute, I was past the fan. I dropped onto the walkway and went to the control box. It was locked with a simple key switch. I jammed the tip of the wrench into the keyhole and twisted. The mechanism broke with a crunch. I flipped the main switch to OFF. The fan spin slowed, the whine descending in pitch until it was still. Come on, I shouted. Vanessa scrambled past the now stationary blades and joined me on the walkway. She was pale, shaking, but her jaw was set. Remind me never to complain about the subway again, she said, her voice shaky. A small, hysterical laugh escaped me. We kept moving. The duct began to slope upward. The air grew warmer, less processed. We could see a pinprick of daylight ahead, the exhaust port. As we neared the end, I slowed, signaling for silence. The opening was covered by a heavy steel grate, camouflaged to look like rock from the outside. Through the slats, I could see the blinding blue of the desert sky and the scrubby expanse of the Mojave, and I could hear voices, muffled, but close. Fan in Sector A7 just went offline, probably a short from the power surge. Check it. Mitchell wants them found. The sister is leverage. The asset has something he needs. I peered through the grate. 2 security personnel, armed with rifles, were standing about 20 yards away, their backs to us, scanning the horizon. The exhaust port was set into a low, rocky hill. We were about 8 feet above the ground. I pointed to the grate's locking mechanism, a simple bar latch on the inside. I mouthed, "On 3." She nodded, understanding. We'd have to be fast, quiet, and hope they were distracted. I held up 1 finger. 2, 3. I slid the latch. It opened with a soft clunk that sounded deafening to me. The 2 guards didn't turn. Together, we pushed the heavy grate open. It swung outward on stiff hinges with a low groan that they heard. Both guards spun, rifles coming up. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" We were sitting ducks in the mouth of the duct. I did the only thing I could think of. I shoved Vanessa sideways, out of the duct opening. She tumbled onto the sandy ground with a cry. At the same instant, I threw myself in the opposite direction, hitting the dirt and rolling. A rifle shot cracked, the bullet pinging off the metal grate. "Hold your fire! You'll hit the civilian!" the other guard yelled. I came up in a crouch behind a boulder, the Glock in my hand. Vanessa was on her stomach behind a scrubby creosote bush. 10 feet away, the 2 guards were advancing, using the sparse cover of rocks and cactus. "Alexis Morgan, stand down," one shouted. "You're only making this worse." I risked a glance. They were professionals, moving in a practiced flanking pattern. In seconds, they'd have clear shots on both of us. "Vanessa, when I start shooting, run for that ravine." I nodded toward a dry wash about 50 yards to the north. "I'm not leaving you." "Do it," I snapped. I leaned out from behind the boulder and fired 2 quick shots, not to hit, but to suppress. The guards dove for cover. The sound of the gunfire was immense in the desert silence. "Go!" I screamed. Vanessa scrambled to her feet and ran, stumbling in the soft sand, toward the ravine. One of the guards popped up, rifle tracking her. I fired again, forcing him back down. I had maybe 2 rounds left. I was pinned. A new sound cut through the air, not gunfire, a deep, rhythmic thrumming, growing rapidly louder. A shadow fell over us. I looked up. A BLACKHAWK helicopter, identical to the one that had extracted us, roared over the ridge, coming in low and fast. It wasn't the Sierra base markings. This one bore the insignia of the Army's 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Night Stalkers. A voice, amplified and authoritative, boomed from a loudspeaker on the helicopter. U.S. Army. All personnel on the ground. Drop your weapons and get on your knees. Now. The 2 guards hesitated, looking at each other, then at the heavily armed bird hovering above. It was a standoff. The side door of the BLACKHAWK slid open. A figure in combat gear, rappelling ropes at the ready, stood in the opening. Even at a distance, I recognized the posture, the way he held himself. It was Colonel David Croft, Deputy Director of the Sentinel Program, Mitchell's superior, and my father's oldest friend. "Morgan." Croft's voice, unamplified but carrying over the rotor wash, shouted, "Stand down. We're here to extract." The guards lowered their weapons, confused. The chain of command was unclear. I didn't lower mine. My mind raced. Croft was supposed to be at a briefing in D.C. How was he here? Was he with Mitchell? Or against him? "Vanessa, stay down!" I yelled. The BLACKHAWK touched down in a cloud of dust and sand. Croft jumped out, ducking under the spinning rotors, and strode toward us, his hands open and away from his sidearm. 2 of his night stalkers covered him, their weapons trained on the Sierra base guards. "Lexi, it's me," Croft said, stopping 20 feet away. He was in his late 50s, with a close-cropped gray beard and eyes the color of flint. "I got your distress signal." "My what?" "The system-wide lockdown alarm you triggered. It tripped a silent beacon, a fail-safe I installed myself. For a situation exactly like this. Mitchell's gone rogue. We've been tracking his movements for weeks, but we didn't have proof. Not until you forced his hand." "He has the location of the attack," I said, the gun still trained on him. "He's not sharing it. He wanted the kill switch key." "I know," Croft said, his voice grave. "We intercepted a secured, encrypted burst from Sierra Base to an unknown receiver 20 minutes ago. It contained geographic coordinates. We believe it's the target location. Mitchell was selling it My blood ran cold. Selling it? To who? We don't know. A third party. Someone who wants the attack to happen as much as the Grey Wolves do. Mitchell was the middleman. He facilitated the Grey Wolves' planning, protected them from our surveillance, and in return, he gets paid, and he gets the kill switch key, which he can then sell back to the highest bidder, probably the U.S. government, after the fact, as a hero who stopped the attack at the last second, or he can use it to control the Grey Wolves themselves. It's a double or triple play. It made a sick kind of sense. Mitchell, the disillusioned spy master, playing all sides. The coordinates he sent. Where? The Dalecarlia pumping station, the primary feed for the federal district and most of Northwest D.C. The final piece clicked. Dalecarlia, it had been one of my 4, the largest, the most critical. We have to get there. I have the key. I tapped my pocket where the hardware token was hidden. That's why I'm here. Croft said, we have a team mobilizing on Dalecarlia now, but they need that key on site, synced to the specific hardware signature. The broadcast has to be local, within 100 yards, or the encryption won't handshake. Mitchell knows that. He'll be expecting us. He'll have his own people there to secure the site and ensure the attack proceeds until he's ready to save the day. I finally lowered the gun. The logic was sound. The evidence fit. Croft had the resources, the authority, and he'd just saved us. What about my sister? She comes with us. She's a material witness and a target. She's safest in the air with me. He gestured to the idling BLACKHAWK. We have a plane waiting at a black strip 50 miles from here. We'll be in D.C. in under 3 hours. We'll beat Mitchell's timeline. It was a clean, professional solution, the kind I'd expect from Croft, but a sliver of ice remained in my gut. Something about the timing was too perfect. Vanessa had crawled over to me. Lexi, she whispered, her voice raw. Can we trust him? I looked at Croft, at the earnest concern on his face, at the professional soldiers behind him. Mitchell had betrayed us. Croft was the chain of command. The good guy. We don't have a choice, I said quietly, then, louder to Croft. Let's go. We're burning daylight. We ran for the BLACKHAWK, the rotor wash whipping sand around us. Croft helped Vanessa up into the cabin, then turned to offer me a hand. As I took it, his grip was firm. His eyes locked on mine. Your father would be proud of you today, Lexi said, his voice almost lost in the roar. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they sent a fresh jolt of unease through me. My father, Robert Morgan, had died in a car accident when I was 12. Croft had been his best friend, his partner at the CIA. He'd been a fixture at our house, a kind uncle figure. He'd even recommended me for the Sentinel program, but he never spoke about my father, said it was too painful. Why bring him up now? I pushed the thought aside as I climbed into the helicopter. The doors slid shut, and we lifted off, the desert floor falling away. Below, I could see the hidden entrance to Sierra Base, and tiny figures, Mitchell's people, spilling out. Looking up at us, we were safe. We were with the good guys. Croft handed me a headset. Get some rest, he said, his voice calm in my ear. It's a long flight to D.C. I'll brief you on the Dalecarlia layout when we're in the air. I nodded, leaning back against the vibrating bulkhead. Vanessa sat across from me, her eyes closed, her face pale with exhaustion and residual terror. We had won. We had escaped. We had the key. We had the location. We had the cavalry. But as I watched the barren landscape stream past below, Mitchell's voice echoed in my memory. Not the cold commands on the audio file, but something he'd said to me years ago during a particularly difficult training simulation. The most dangerous lie, Sentinel, is the one you tell yourself because you so desperately want it to be true. I had wanted Croft to be the rescue. I had needed him to be the hero. I looked at the hardware token in my hand, the little drive that held the key to saving a city. Then I looked at Croft, who was now studying a map on a tablet, his face illuminated by the cool blue light. And for the first time, I wondered if we'd just escaped from the wolf, only to fly straight into the lion's den. The BLACKHAWK ate up the miles, a dark speck against the vast, indifferent sky. Inside, the world was reduced to the constant, vibrating thrum of the rotors and the stale, metallic taste of recycled air. Vanessa had finally succumbed to exhaustion, her head lolling against the webbing, asleep or in a state of shocked catatonia. I envied her escape. Colonel Croft sat across from me, his gaze fixed on a ruggedized tablet. The screen displayed schematics of the Dalecarlia pumping station, blueprints, security layouts, utility access points. He'd been the one to brief me, his voice a model of crisp, military efficiency. It was all exactly as I'd expect, exactly as it should be, and that was the problem. The station went into lockdown 30 minutes ago, Croft said, not looking up. Homeland's order. Part of Sentinel silent. Skeleton crew on site. All federalized. They've been instructed to cooperate with any federal tactical team bearing the right codes. Mitchell will have those codes. He'll have a team there already, posing as NSA or FBI critical response. They'll control the narrative until the last possible moment. And your team? I asked, my voice flat. The 160th doesn't knock. Lexi, we go in hard and fast. Secure the perimeter. Neutralize any hostiles. Your job is to get to the main control server room. That's where the injection system will be interfaced. You plug in the key, run the program, and the hardware fries itself. The VX stays in the tanks. He finally looked at me. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, I said. Mitchell exposed himself to stop me. He wouldn't do that unless the payoff was monumental, or unless he had a fallback plan. He knows you're in the chain of command. He'd assume you'd be notified of a Sierra-level breach. Croft's expression didn't change. He's arrogant. He thought he'd have you in custody, the key in his possession, and your sister as a bargaining chip before anyone was the wiser. Your little digital stunt forced his hand. Now he's scrambling. It was logical. It was what I wanted to believe. But the ice in my gut hadn't melted. It had grown. A cold, hard knot of dread. How did you know where to find us? The exhaust port. Thermal satellite feed. Sierra Base has a predictable heat signature. When the A7 fan went offline, it created an anomaly. We saw two hot spots, you and your sister, emerging. We were already en route, vectoring on the lockdown signal. Again, perfect, flawless, intelligence-led, rapid response. I glanced at the two night stalkers in the cabin with us. They were statues, helmets on, visors down, weapons across their laps. Professional, anonymous. Sir, I began, choosing my words carefully. When we were in the duct, the guards, they said Mitchell wanted my sister as leverage. That I'd give him anything for her, but he already had me. He had me in the ops center. He had me generating the key. Why did he need her? Croft's eyes, those flint-colored eyes, held mine. Insurance. You're a trained operative. Lexi, stubborn, resourceful. He knew you might try something. With Vanessa, he had a psychological kill switch, a way to guarantee your compliance if you got difficult. It made sense. It was spying 101. And yet he said it would make me pliable. I watched his face for a flicker. A tell. Not just compliant. Pliable. As in, malleable. Willing to be shaped. For what? A faint, almost imperceptible line appeared between Croft's brows. Annoyance? Concern? Semantics. Lexi, the man is a traitor selling nerve gas attacks. I wouldn't psychoanalyze his word choice. Focus on the mission. We're 2 hours out from a refueling stop in Nebraska. Then it's a straight shot to D.C. He went back to his tablet, a clear dismissal. I leaned my head back, closing my eyes. I needed to think. The key in my pocket felt like a live grenade. I had to assume Croft was clean. The alternative, that the corruption went higher than Mitchell, that the deputy director of the Sentinel program was also compromised, was too catastrophic to consider. It meant the entire apparatus designed to stop this was part of the plot, but I had to consider it. It was my job to consider every variable, no matter how horrifying. I ran through the sequence. My cover is blown. Mitchell tries to grab me. Fails. I escape the base with Vanessa. Croft arrives in the nick of time. He has the coordinates Mitchell leaked. He has a plan. He's taking us to the target. What if he wasn't taking us to stop the attack? What if he was taking us to ensure it? The thought was so vile I almost rejected it outright, but the logic, twisted as it was, had a certain symmetry. If Croft was the third party Mitchell was selling to, then he already had the coordinates. He'd want the key, too, and he'd want the one person who could generate it and operate it, me. He'd also want the one person who could control me, Vanessa. He'd rescued us perfectly, gained our trust. Now he was delivering us, and the key right to the doorstep of the attack. But to what end? If he wanted the attack to happen, why bring me and the key at all? He could just leave us in the desert and let the clock run out. Unless the key wasn't just a stop switch. Mitchell had called it a package. The mercenaries were ordered to get the package on the asset. What if the key was more? What if it was also the arming mechanism? A digital trigger that needed to be physically inserted to initiate the dispersal? No, the intelligence was clear. The Grey Wolves had built the system. The key was a backdoor kill switch, a fail-safe they'd ironically built into their own design, a common practice among paranoid engineers. My decryption had found the backdoor. That's all it was. Wasn't it? I had to know. I needed to look at the key's code, not just use it, but I couldn't do that here, in a moving helicopter, under Croft's watchful eye. The refueling stop. That was my chance. I feigned sleep, letting my breathing slow. Through slitted eyes, I watched Croft. He was typing on the tablet, his face a mask of concentration. After a few minutes, he set it aside, stood, and made his way forward to the cockpit, speaking to the pilots. I waited until he was engaged in conversation, his back to the cabin, moving with glacial slowness. I reached into my pocket and withdrew the hardware token. It was a small, black USB-C drive with a hardened shell. I palmed it, then carefully, so carefully, reached over to Vanessa's sleeping form. Her jacket was unzipped. I slipped the token into the inner pocket, then zipped it halfway up. It was a risk, but if Croft searched me, he wouldn't find it. And Vanessa, asleep, was the least suspicious place for it. I had just settled back when Croft returned. His eyes swept over me, then Vanessa, then the two soldiers. Satisfied, he retook his seat. 20 minutes to the Badlands Express, he said, catching my eye. I must have looked questioning. The refueling strip. It's an old, decommissioned airfield we use for discreet transits. We'll be on the ground for 15 minutes. Stay on the bird. It's safer. I nodded. Understood. The Badlands Express was a patch of cracked tarmac in the middle of nowhere. South Dakota, a couple of sagging hangars, a windsock, and a fuel truck waited under the harsh midday sun. As we touched down, the world outside the windows became a shimmering haze of heat. Remember, stay put, Croft said, unbuckling and moving to the door. One of the night stalkers followed him out, presumably to oversee the refueling. The other remained in the cabin, a silent guardian. This was it, my only window. I nudged Vanessa awake. Her eyes flew open, full of fresh panic, before she recognized her surroundings. Wah! Vanessa, listen to me, I whispered, my lips barely moving, my eyes on the soldier. He was looking out the window, but I knew he was listening. I need you to do something. In your jacket pocket, there's a small black drive. I need you to give it to me, but don't let him see. I tilted my head minutely toward the guard. Confusion, then understanding dawned in her eyes. She was a lawyer. She understood subterfuge. She coughed, a dry, hacking sound, and turned away from the soldier, fumbling with her jacket zipper. A moment later, her hand brushed mine, and the token was back in my palm. I'm going to the lab, I said aloud, standing up. The helicopter had a small, enclosed chemical toilet at the rear of the cabin. The soldier turned his helmeted head toward me. Colonel said to stay seated. Ma'am, it's an emergency, I said, putting a slight, embarrassed urgency into my voice. Unless you want me to have an accident on your nice helicopter. A slight pause, then he gave a single, curt nod. Make it quick. I moved to the tiny lavatory and locked the flimsy door. The space was barely larger than a coffin. I pulled out the token and my secure phone, the one I'd taken from my pack at the base. It had limited functionality, but it could read the token. My hands shook as I plugged it in. The drive mounted. It contained a single, heavily encrypted file. Sentinel_countersigma, Inc. I didn't have the processing power to break the encryption, but I could analyze the file's metadata, its size, its structure. I ran a quick diagnostic. The file was larger than it should be for a simple kill code. Much larger. It contained nested layers of encryption, and what looked like a payload. A cold sweat broke out on my back. A payload, like a virus, or a secondary command set, using a basic hex editor. I attempted to peek at the raw header data. passed the first layer of Sentinel encryption. It was a long shot. The code was a chaotic scramble, but patterns emerged to a trained eye. I saw strings that weren't part of any decryption protocol I knew. Strings that referenced activation sequences, primary dispersal, and timer sync. My blood turned to ice. The key wasn't a kill switch. It was the arming device. Mitchell and the Grey Wolves hadn't built a failsafe. They'd built a dead man's switch, but in reverse. The system was inert, harmless, until this key was inserted and the correct code was given. The NIT would release the VX. The failsafe was a lie, a piece of brilliant, diabolical tradecraft. They'd fed us that intelligence, knowing we'd find it, knowing we'd believe it. They'd led me to decrypt the key, to build it myself. They'd made me the unwitting architect of the attack. And Mitchell, he hadn't wanted to stop him from using it. He'd wanted to ensure I used it in the right place, at the right time. He needed me to believe I was saving the day. So I'd willingly insert the key and trigger the Holocaust. That's why he needed Vanessa pliable, to ensure I followed through even if I had doubts. And Croft, where did he fit? If he was clean, he was flying us into a trap, believing we carried the cure. We'd walk into Dalecarlia. I'd plug in the key, and instead of saving millions, I'd murder them. If he was dirty, he knew exactly what the key was. He was delivering the trigger mechanism right to the launch site. Either way, the result was the same. Dalecarlia was a death trap, and I was the bomb. A sharp rap on the door. "Ma'am, time's up. Refueling is complete." "Just a second," I called, my voice strangled. I yanked the token from the phone. My mind raced, a whirlwind of terror and calculation. I couldn't destroy the key. They'd know. They'd kill us and find another way. The system might have a manual override. I couldn't reveal what I knew. Not yet. Not here. Surrounded by Croft's men. I had to play the game. I had to go to Dalecarlia, but I couldn't use the key. I had to find another way to disable the system, and I had to do it without Croft or Mitchell or anyone else stopping me. I needed a weapon, not a gun, a digital one. I needed to write a counterprogram, a worm that would destroy the injection system's firmware when the key tried to activate it. But I needed a computer, time, and access to the Sentinel code libraries. I had none of those things. Think, Lexi, improvise, an idea, desperate and insane, formed. The key was a program. It had to interface with the target system. If I could corrupt the key, sabotage it from within, but altering the encryption would be detected immediately. Unless I didn't alter the encryption, I altered the delivery. I pulled out the 2 bobby pins I still had. They were just steel. I broke one, creating a sharp, slender pick. My hands, slick with sweat, worked quickly. I inserted the pick into the USB-C port of the token, carefully, delicately, probing the internal connections. I wasn't trying to break it. I was trying to create a subtle short, a flaw that would cause a power surge or a data corruption error at a critical moment during the handshake with the target system. It was a 1 in a million shot. It might do nothing. It might fry the key entirely. It might cause it to fail in a way that looked like natural malfunction. It was the only shot I had. I bent a tiny contact, just a millimeter out of alignment. Then I carefully wiped the token clean of fingerprints and sweat and slipped it back into my pocket. I flushed the toilet for effect, unlocked the door, and stepped out. The soldier was waiting. "Everything all right, ma'am?" "Fine," I said, forcing a weak smile. "Air sickness." I returned to my seat. Vanessa looked at me, her eyes full of silent questions. I gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of my head. "Not now." Croft reboarded, followed by the other soldier. "All set. Next stop, the capital." He looked at me. "You're pale. The flight getting to you?" "Just the gravity of the situation, sir," I said. He nodded, as if that were the appropriate response. "It's a heavy burden, but you're not carrying it alone." He buckled in. "Pilot, let's go. Maximum safe speed. We have a city to save." The engines powered up. The helicopter lifted off, leaving the lonely airstrip behind. As we climbed back into the sky, I looked out at the rolling, empty hills below, a city to save. He had no idea. The real key was in my pocket, a poisoned pill. The man I was supposed to trust might be a traitor. The sister I'd dragged into this was looking to me for salvation I might not be able to provide. And in roughly 2 hours, we would land, and I would have to walk into the heart of the enemy's design, pretend to be their savior, and somehow, with a bent piece of metal and a prayer, convince a machine of death to destroy itself. I closed my eyes. Mitchell's voice again, from another lesson. When the plan goes to hell, Sentinel, the mission doesn't change. Only the improvisation does. The plan was in hell. The mission was a lie. All that was left was the improvisation. The sky over the Potomac was the color of bruised steel, threatening rain. From the air, Washington, D.C. looked deceptively calm, a sprawling monument to order and power. The BLACKHAWK skimmed low over the river, avoiding standard flight paths, its rotors a muffled throb in the soundproofed cabin. My stomach was a tight coil of dread. Colonel Croft pointed through the window. There, Dalecarlia. The pumping station was a sprawling, fortress-like complex of red brick and newer concrete additions, nestled in a wooded area off the river. High fences topped with razor wire glinted in the dull light. From up here, it looked quiet, too quiet. No swarm of emergency vehicles, no visible tactical teams, just the hum of machinery and the slow churn of water. Where's Homeland's response? I asked, my voice tight. Inside, the lockdown protocol means minimal external presence to avoid panic. The team on the ground reports they've secured the exterior and are sweeping the interior. They've encountered no resistance. Croft's tone was all business, but his eyes kept flicking to me, assessing. They're waiting for us, for the key, for the trigger, I thought. Vanessa, seated beside me, gripped my arm. She'd been silent since the refueling stop, a watchful, pale ghost. She'd seen something in my face, in the tremor I couldn't quite hide. Lexi, she whispered, so low only I could hear. What's wrong? Everything. I breathed back. Stay close to me, no matter what. The BLACKHAWK flared, descending toward a cleared helipad on the station's south lawn. As we touched down, the side door slid open. The roar of the engines and the whip of rotor wash filled the cabin. Croft unbuckled and stood, gesturing for us to follow. Move with purpose, straight to the main control building. Rook, Bishop flanked them. The two night stalkers, Rook and Bishop, who had been with us since the desert, fell in on either side of Vanessa and me. Their presence felt less like protection and more like an escort, a delivery detail. We ducked under the still spinning rotors and jogged across the damp grass toward a heavy steel door marked Main Control. Authorized personnel only. A man in a black tactical vest, helmet, and holding an M4 carbine stood guard. He nodded at Croft, then swiped a keycard. The door buzzed open. We stepped into a sterile, fluorescent-lit corridor. The air was cool and carried a faint chlorine tang, mixed with the smell of ozone and machine oil. The hum of massive pumps was a deep, vibrating bass note through the floor. A sign on the wall with an arrow pointed to Central Control Room. This way, Croft said, leading us down the hall. We passed empty offices, monitoring stations with blinking lights. The place felt hollow, abandoned. Where was the skeleton crew? Where was the Homeland Security team? My senses screamed. This was wrong. It was a set. We reached a set of double doors. Another guard, identical to the first, stood outside. He opened the door without a word. The central control room was a wide, semicircular space dominated by a wall of illuminated schematic diagrams, showing the flow of water from the Potomac through sedimentation basins, filters, and chemical treatment vats, then out to the city. Consoles with dozens of monitors lined the room, displaying pressure readings, chemical levels, and security camera feeds. Most of the feeds showed empty corridors, and in the center of the room, standing before the main master control panel, was Commander James Mitchell. He'd changed out of his uniform. He wore dark civilian clothes, and he held a compact submachine gun loosely at his side. He wasn't alone, for more armed men, dressed in the same generic tactical gear as the door guards, were positioned around the room. They weren't Homeland. They weren't NSA. They were Mitchell's private army. But it was the man standing next to Mitchell, studying a water flow diagram, who made the breath catch in my throat. He was older, late 60s, with a gaunt, aristocratic face and silver hair swept back. He wore an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, utterly out of place in the industrial setting. I knew him from intelligence briefings, from wanted posters in secure databases. Laszlo Varga, a Hungarian-American industrialist, philanthropist, and one of the CIA's most persistent persons of interest. a suspected financier of instability, a broker of catastrophic technologies, the third party. The buyer. Mitchell smiled. A cold, weary thing. Alexis. Colonel. Welcome. I'm glad you could make it. The final act requires the full cast. Croft didn't seem surprised. He stepped forward, his posture relaxed. Mitchell. Varga. The charade is over. The 160th has the perimeter. You're surrounded. Stand down. Mitchell chuckled. The 160th is currently being presented with very convincing orders from the Deputy Director of National Intelligence to stand by at a perimeter 5 miles out. Something about avoiding cross-contamination of a federal response. They're good soldiers. They follow orders. He looked at Croft. Unlike some, the pieces slammed together with brutal, horrifying clarity. Croft wasn't just clean, he was in on it. He'd played me perfectly. The rescue, the concern, the timely arrival, all to deliver me, and the key right to Mitchell and Varga. He was the inside man at the highest level. Mitchell handled the operational betrayal. Croft handled the institutional cover. The betrayal was so complete, so total. It felt like a physical blow. I swayed on my feet. Vanessa's grip on my arm tightened, her nails digging in. You. I breathed, looking at Croft. You sent the lockdown signal. You knew I'd run. You were waiting. Croft didn't look at me. His gaze was fixed on Varga. The key. Alexis, give it to me. It's over. It's not a kill switch, is it? My voice was raw. It's the arming mechanism. You made me build the trigger. Varga turned from the diagram. He had pale, watery blue eyes that held no emotion whatsoever. A necessary deception. Miss Morgan, your skills are extraordinary. We needed a key that was absolutely, cryptographically pure, untraceable to us. Who better to create it than the NSA's own prodigy, believing she was acting in the name of national security? The irony is exquisite. Why? The word was torn from me. Why do this? Millions of people. Scale. My dear, Varga said, as if explaining a simple market principle. Terror is a commodity. Its value lies in predictability and response. A catastrophic, indiscriminate attack on the American capital, traced to a known extremist group, will create a consensus for action unlike anything since 9/11. The security apparatus will be granted unlimited powers. Budgets will swell. Certain contracts for surveillance, for militarized policing, for pharmaceutical countermeasures, for rebuilding will be worth hundreds of billions. My consortium is positioned to receive the majority of those contracts. A short-term tragedy for a long-term reordering. He was a monster, a calculator in a suit. And you? I spat, turning to Mitchell. What's your cut? Money? Power? Mitchell's smile vanished. My son, he said. The words stark and simple. The gray wolves took him. In Istanbul, 18 months ago, they said they'd return him piece by piece unless I cooperated. Varga here offered a more elegant solution. I helped facilitate their attack. And in the chaos of the response, a private extraction team paid for by Varga gets my boy out. I get my son back. And I get the satisfaction of knowing the bureaucrats who left him hanging out to dry get to feel a fraction of the fear I've lived with. It was a tangle of motives, greed, paternal desperation, revenge. It didn't make the atrocity any less vile. And you, Colonel? I asked Croft, my voice trembling with fury. What's your price? A promotion? A cabinet post? Croft finally looked at me. His flinty eyes were empty. The Sentinel program was my life's work. Lexi, and it's being dismantled. Budget cuts, oversight committees. They're tying our hands while the wolves are at the door. This event will prove we were right all along. It will restore the program, and more. It will make it the most powerful intelligence entity on Earth. Sometimes, to save a nation, you must first let it feel the fire. He believed it. That was the worst part. He saw himself as a patriot, making a hard choice for the greater, long-term good. You're all insane, Vanessa whispered, her voice shaking but clear. You're talking about murdering innocent people to make a point. History is written by those who make the difficult decisions. Ms. Morgan, Varga said dismissively. Now, the key. We are on a schedule. The injection system is primed and waiting. The chemical tanks are in place. All it requires is the final command. He held out a slender, manicured hand to me. Give it to the colonel. I didn't move. My hand was in my pocket, clenched around the token, the sabotaged token. My one, desperate, pathetic gambit. Rook and bishop stepped closer, their weapons not quite aimed at us. But the threat was clear. Lexi, Croft said, his tone softening into that paternal, persuasive rhythm I knew so well. It's done. The machinery is in motion. If you don't provide the key, Mitchell's men will simply kill you and your sister, and we will find a technician who can brute force the system. It will be Messier, but the result will be the same. Give me the key. Do this one last thing for your country. Then you and Vanessa will be taken to a secure location. You'll be protected. You have my word. His word, worthless. I looked at Vanessa. Her face was a mask of terror, but her eyes held mine. In them, I didn't see a plea for me to comply. I saw a desperate, fierce love and a silent question. What's the play? I had no play. I had a bent piece of metal in a USB drive and a hope that bordered on insanity. But I had to try, for her, for the city sleeping just downstream. I slowly pulled the token from my pocket. I held it up, the black plastic glinting under the fluorescent lights. Mitchell's men tensed. Varga's lips thinned in anticipation. You want it, I said, my voice suddenly calm. Come and get it. I threw it, not to Croft, not to Mitchell. I threw it sideways, as hard as I could, at the wall of monitor screens behind the consoles. It was a stupid, childish move, but it created the half-second of chaos I needed. Everyone's eyes, the guards, Mitchell, Varga, Croft, tracked the flying object. In that split second, I shoved Vanessa hard towards the bank of server racks along the back wall. Down! At the same moment, I lunged not for a guard, not for a weapon, but for the nearest computer console. My hands flew over the keyboard. I didn't have access codes, but I didn't need them. I needed to cause a different kind of havoc. I typed a command I'd learned in my first week of training, a digital scorched earth protocol for compromised stations. I entered the master override code, a code Mitchell himself had given me, a code that was the same on all federal critical infrastructure. 111111. Stupid, but true. The screen before me flashed. Emergency purge initiated. Confirm? Y/NI slammed the Y key. Alarms, different from the ones at Sierra Base, erupted throughout the building. Not a containment alarm. A shrill, urgent evacuation siren. Red lights strobed. On the master schematic, a dozen points turned from green to flashing red. What did you do? Mitchell roared, swinging his weapon toward me. I triggered a full chemical purge of the treatment vats. I shouted over the din. In 60 seconds, this entire building will be flooded with concentrated chlorine and neutralizing agents. It'll ruin your VX, and it'll gas every living thing in here. It was a bluff. The purge was real, but it would flood the treatment vats, not the control room. But they didn't know that. The alarms were convincingly terrifying. Varga's cool facade cracked. Stop her! Stop it! One of Mitchell's men, the one by the door, turned and ran, fleeing the imaginary gas. Another hesitated, looking to Mitchell. In that hesitation, Croft moved, but not towards me. He drew his sidearm and, in one fluid motion, shot the hesitant guard in the chest. The man crumpled. Enough! Croft bellowed, his voice cutting through the siren. He turned his gun, not on me, but on Mitchell. The plan is compromised. James, it's over. Mitchell stared, stunned. David, what are you doing? Adapting, Croft said coldly. The purge can be stopped from the master terminal, but we no longer need the key. We have the asset who can rebuild it, and we have a new narrative. A rogue commander, in league with a foreign financier, attempted a chemical attack. He took the deputy director and a valued analyst hostage. In the ensuing struggle, the heroic deputy director killed the traitor and the financier, but not before the analyst tragically sacrificed herself, disabling the device. He glanced at me, his meaning clear. Vanessa and I were now loose ends to be trimmed. A cleaner story, more heroic. The program gets its funding, and I get a medal. He'd been playing everyone, Mitchell, Varga, me. He was the ultimate opportunist, pivoting to the most advantageous outcome. Mitchell's face contorted in rage and betrayal. He raised his submachine gun. You bastard! They fired at the same time. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Mitchell staggered back, a red blossom spreading on his chest. Croft grunted, spinning as a round caught him in the shoulder. The remaining 2 guards, loyal to Mitchell, opened fire on Croft. Rook and Bishop, caught in a whirlwind of conflicting loyalties, reacted instinctively, returning fire at the guards. The control room exploded into a storm of gunfire and shouting. I grabbed Vanessa, who was crouched behind a server rack, and pulled her to the floor. Crawl to the door! We scrambled on hands and knees through the forest of chair legs and console bases. Bullets whined overhead, punching into monitors, sending showers of sparks and glass. I saw Varga, his suit immaculate, edging toward the exit, a look of pure disgust on his face. The chaos was bad for business. We reached the double doors just as a stray bullet shattered the control panel beside them. The doors, losing power, hissed and began to slide shut automatically, but slowly. Go. I pushed Vanessa through the narrowing gap. She squeezed through. I followed, a bullet tearing a chunk out of the doorframe inches from my head. We stumbled into the corridor. The evacuation siren was even louder out here. Through the closing doors, I saw the final act. Croft, wounded but standing, shot the last of Mitchell's men. Bishop was down on the floor, unmoving. Rook had his weapon trained on Croft, but was hesitating, the chain of command breaking before his eyes. Then the doors sealed shut with a final thud, cutting off the view. This way, I yelled, pulling Vanessa down the corridor, away from the control room. We had no plan, no destination. We just had to run. We rounded a corner and almost collided with a man in coveralls, a station technician, hiding in a supply closet, his face white with fear. Please, don't shoot, he begged, holding up his hands. We're not with them. I gasped. The attack, the chemical injection system, where is it? Not the treatment vats, the bypass, the illegal hookup. He stared, uncomprehending for a second, then nodded frantically. S-sub-level, the old filtration wing. They sealed it off, brought in their own crew last week. I can show you. Show us, now. He led us to a maintenance stairwell, down 2 flights into a colder, older part of the building. The air smelled of damp concrete and rust. At the bottom was a heavy, watertight door, like something on a ship. It was held shut by a new, heavy-duty electronic lock. That's it. They put that on. We don't have the code. I didn't need the code. I needed the key. The real key, which was back in the firefight or broken on the floor. But the sabotage, if I could get the key and somehow use its failure to cause a cascade, a thunder of boots on the stairs above. Croft's voice, strained with pain but commanding. Find them. They're in the sub-level. We were out of time. I looked at the technician. Is there another way in? Vents, conduits. He pointed to a ceiling panel further down the hall. Access tunnels for the old steam pipes. They might connect. It was our only chance. Vanessa, go with him. Get to the surface. Find a phone, a radio, anything. Call the actual police. Tell them Deputy Director Croft is compromised. The authentication code is Sierra Blue. They'll listen. Go. I'm not leaving you. Her eyes were wild. You have to. You're the only one who can get the truth out. Go. The technician was already pulling at the ceiling panel. Vanessa looked at me, a torrent of emotions on her face. Fear, love, anger. Then she gave one sharp, agonized nod. Don't you die on me, Alexis. She let the technician boost her up into the crawl space. He followed, pulling the panel mostly closed behind him. I turned back to the sealed door. The boots were on the stairs just above. I had seconds. I ran to the door, not to open it, but to the electronic locks control box. It was a sleek, commercial model. I yanked it open, revealing a nest of wires. I had no tools, no idea what I was doing. I was a cryptologist, not a safecracker. The stairwell door at the end of the hall burst open. Croft stood there, one arm hanging useless, his other hand holding his service pistol. Blood soaked his shoulder. Behind him was Rook, his weapon also trained on me. His face was a conflicted grimace behind his visor. It's over. Lexi, Croft panted. Step away from the door. I looked at the wires. Red, black, green, blue. The classic colors. Power, ground, data, clock. If I couldn't open the door, maybe I could seal it forever. 'Cause a short that would fuse the lock mechanism shut. With a silent prayer, I grabbed the red and black wires, power and ground, and yanked them from their connectors, then smashed the bare copper ends together. A fountain of sparks erupted from the box. A sharp crack-off electricity. A surge of power shot up my arm, shocking me, throwing me back against the concrete wall. My vision swam. The smell of ozone and burnt plastic filled the air. The lock's display went dark. A thin wisp of smoke curled from the box. The door was sealed, electromagnetically deadlocked. No one was getting in that way, but I hadn't stopped the attack. I just delayed it. They'd bring torches. Cut through. Croft took a step forward, his gun steady, a pointless gesture. We'll cut through in an hour. The key is still in the control room. The system is still primed. I pushed myself up, my right arm numb and buzzing from the shock. I had nothing left. No weapons, no tricks, no escape. Then, from behind the sealed door, I heard a new sound, a deep, gurgling, grinding groan of metal under immense stress. Then a series of sharp, explosive pops, like balloons bursting, followed by the hiss of pressurized gas. The lights in the sublevel flickered. Croft stopped, frowning. What was that? I didn't know, but the sabotage, the short in the key. What if it hadn't just corrupted the key? What if, when Mitchell or someone tried to use it in the chaos, it had sent a corrupted signal? A surge of power back through the injection system's own circuitry. The popping sounds grew louder, a cascade of them, moving away behind the door. Then, a different alarm began to sound, a deep, pulsing whoop-whoop, a contamination alarm. A red light above the door I'd fused began to flash. A computerized voice, calm and terrible, echoed from speakers in the hall. Containment breach detected. Sub-level chemical storage. Toxic vapor release. Initiating site-wide neutralization protocol. Seal all bulkheads. Massive, hidden blast doors began to descend from the ceilings further down the corridor, sectioning off the sublevel. The one nearest us started to grind down. The VX, the tanks, my corrupted key, or the power surge from my wiring, or just sheer dumb luck. Something had caused a failure, not a controlled dispersal into the water, a catastrophic rupture in the storage tanks themselves. Right here in the sublevel, the VX was leaking. Here, now. Croft's eyes widened in genuine, unfeigned horror. He understood the implications immediately. VX nerve gas, in vapor form, in a confined, underground space. Back, up the stairs, he screamed at Rook. They turned and fled back through the stairwell door, just as the first blast door sealed with a final, earth-shaking thud, cutting off the contaminated section. I was trapped in a short section of hallway with the sealed door to the injection room, with the VX leaking on the other side. The vapor would seep through cracks, through vents. It was only a matter of time. The neutralization protocol. The computer said it was initiating. What did that mean? Then I heard it, a hissing, like 1,000 snakes, from grates in the ceiling. A fine, white mist began to spray down, a neutralizing aerosol, designed to break down toxic agents. It might work, it might not. VX was persistent. I stumbled to the stairwell door, locked from the other side, or sealed by the protocol. I was in a tomb. I slid down the wall to the floor, the cold concrete seeping through my clothes. The hissing mist coated everything, beating on my skin, my hair. It smelled sharply alkaline, like industrial cleaner. I thought of Vanessa, hopefully crawling to safety. I thought of the city above, unaware of how close it had come. I thought of Mitchell, dead by Croft's hand, of Croft, escaping to rewrite history. I had failed. I had stopped the large-scale attack, but at the cost of a localized disaster and my own life. The corrupt would spin the story. The guilty would go free. The hissing filled my ears. My vision began to blur at the edges. Was it the gas? The shock? Exhaustion? As darkness crept in at the corners of my eyes, my last conscious thought was a bitter, ironic realization in the end. The sentinel, the watcher, the decoder of secrets, had been the easiest piece for everyone to sacrifice. Then, nothing. Consciousness returned in a series of jagged, painful slices. First came the smell, a harsh, medicinal tang that burned my nostrils, overlaying something stale and metallic. Then came sound, a low, steady beep, the hum of machinery, the murmur of distant voices. Finally, sensation, a deep ache in every muscle, a raw tenderness in my throat, and a profound, crushing weight on my chest. I tried to open my eyes. The light was a soft, diffused white, not the blinding fluorescence of delicarlia. I was in a bed, hospital, white ceiling tiles, white walls, and 4 lines snaked from a bag on a stand into the back of my hand. Monitors beeped beside me. I was alive. The memory flooded back in a terrifying rush. The control room, the gunfire, the sealed door, the hissing gas, the creeping dark. VX, I should be dead, twitching, foaming, seizing, not lying in a clean bed. I tried to sit up. A wave of dizziness and nausea forced me back down. A sharp pain lanced through my right arm where I'd been shocked. A figure stirred in a chair by the window. Vanessa. She was asleep, curled awkwardly, still wearing the same dirty clothes from the desert, now rumpled and stained. A blue hospital blanket was draped over her shoulders. There were dark circles under her eyes, but her face, in sleep, had lost the mask of terror. It was just my sister, exhausted. Vanessa. I croaked. My voice was a dry, broken thing. Her eyes flew open. For a second, confusion, then a tidal wave of relief. She was out of the chair and at my bedside in an instant, her hands hovering as if afraid to touch me. Lexi, oh, thank God, you're awake. How? I managed. The neutralizing agent, she said, her words tumbling out in a relieved rush. The protocol worked. It flooded the sublevel and the vents. It broke down the VX before the vapor could reach lethal concentration. You got a minor dose, enough to make you very sick. Neurotoxicity, they called it. Seizures. They had to put you in a medically induced coma for 48 hours to let your system flush it, but you're clean. You're going to be okay. 48 hours. I'd lost 2 days. Croft? Mitchell? Varga. Her face hardened. Mitchell is dead. Varga, he got away. Slipped out in the chaos before the building was sealed. They're looking for him. But she shrugged. The gesture eloquent. A man with his resources could disappear forever. And Croft? The door to the room opened before she could answer. A man in a dark suit entered. He was in his 40s, with a sharp, intelligent face and the weary eyes of someone who's seen too many lies. He wasn't FBI or Homeland. His bearing screamed Internal Affairs or Inspector General. Ms. Morgan, I'm Special Agent in Charge, Ian Fletcher, with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Internal Security Division. He held up a credentials wallet. I'm glad to see you're awake. We have a great deal to discuss. Vanessa moved protectively closer to the bed. She just woke up. She needs rest. What she needs, Fletcher said, his voice calm but unyielding, is to help us prevent a constitutional crisis. Colonel David Croft is in the next building, in a secure medical wing, recovering from a gunshot wound. He is spinning a very compelling story, one in which he is the hero. Commander Mitchell was the sole traitor, and you, Ms. Morgan, are either a confused victim or a willing accomplice who panicked and nearly caused a disaster. The rage that surged through me was hot and pure, cutting through the drug-induced fog. He's a liar. He was in on it. He delivered me to them. He was going to kill us and take the credit. I believe you, Fletcher said, to my surprise. But belief isn't proof. And Colonel Croft is a decorated officer with 30 years of service. His word carries immense weight. Your word. You're a junior analyst with a file full of fabricated cover stories. A sister who is a lawyer with a history of dismissing you, and you were just found unconscious at the scene of a chemical weapons incident you helped create. It's a credibility contest you are currently losing. The brutal truth of it was a punch to the gut. Croft had planned for this, too. He'd built my cover, and now it was the cage he'd used to discredit me. So that's it, Vanessa said, her voice tight with anger. He gets away with it? After everything? Not if I can help it, Fletcher said. He pulled a digital recorder from his pocket and set it on the bedside table. But I need your statement. Everything. From the moment your sister dropped you at the airport to the moment you woke up here. Don't leave anything out. The technical details, the codes, the voices on the audio file, all of it. I've already taken your sister's statement. It's detailed and compelling, but you're the primary. I looked at Vanessa. She gave a small, firm nod. Tell him everything. Lexi, it's time. I took a deep, shuddering breath that made my ribs ache, and I began to talk. I told Fletcher about the Sierra alert, the mercenaries, the flight to the base. I told him about Mitchell's voice on the audio, about the corrupted key, about my realization in the helicopter. I told him about Croft's rescue, the refueling stop, the sabotage with the bobby pin. I told him about the control room, the confrontation, Croft's chilling pivot, the gunfight, the sealed door, the desperate short circuit. I talked until my voice gave out, until a nurse came in and made me sip water. Fletcher listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When I finished, the room was silent except for the beep of the heart monitor. The key. Fletcher said, finally, the physical token. Where is it? Shattered on the control room floor, or melted from the electrical surge. I rasped. The sabotage. I'd been to contact. I think when Mitchell or someone tried to use it, it sent a power spike back through the system. It caused the tank rupture. Fletcher nodded slowly. Forensics found the token, or what was left of it, fused into a piece of the master console. The internal circuitry shows evidence of tampering. A foreign metal fragment causing a short. Your bobby pin. Presumably, that physical evidence corroborates your story about sabotaging it. He leaned forward, but it's not enough. Croft can claim you sabotaged it to cover your own tracks, or out of panic. We need something that directly ties Croft to the plot before Delacarlia. The audio file implicates Mitchell, not Croft. We need a financial trail, a communication, a witness. I closed my eyes, my mind racing through the digital debris of the last few days. A witness. Rook? The night stalker had hesitated. He'd seen Croft shoot Mitchell, but he was a soldier. Would he testify against a superior officer? A financial trail. Varga was the money. If we could find the payment to Croft, my eyes snapped open. The encrypted burst. Croft said they intercepted a secured encrypted burst from Sierra Base to an unknown receiver. The coordinates. He said Mitchell sent it, but what if Croft sent it to Varga or to a cutout? If you can trace that burst, find the receiver and link it to Croft's command codes or his location at the time. Fletcher's eyes sharpened. The burst was logged by NSA satellites. It's a needle in a global haystack. But if the encryption wasn't perfect, and if we have a suspect to key the search on, he stood abruptly. Rest. I'll be back. And Ms. Morgan. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something like respect in his weary face. Whatever else happens, you saved a lot of lives in that pumping station. Remember that. He left, closing the door softly behind him. The room was quiet again. The immensity of it all, the betrayal, the brush with death, the ongoing fight, settled over me like a lead blanket. He's going to get away with it, isn't he? I whispered. Vanessa took my good hand. Her grip was warm, firm. No, he's not, because we're not letting him. The we was fierce. Fletcher is good. I've been dealing with him for 2 days. He's a bulldog, and he hates crooked spooks. But we need more than just your word and a bent bobby pin. She bit her lip, thinking. Croft said something to you in the helicopter about Dad. A cold trickle of unease ran through me. He said Dad would be proud. Why would he say that? Here, now, in the middle of all this. I'd wondered the same thing, a cheap manipulation or something else. My father, Robert Morgan, former CIA, died in a car crash when I was 12. A closed casket, a hasty funeral. Croft had been devastated, or so he'd seemed. I don't know, I said. Maybe it's nothing. Vanessa said, but her lawyer's mind was turning over. Or maybe it's a thread. Croft and Dad were partners, best friends. If Croft has been planning something this big, this twisted, for a long time, was it just about the Sentinel program? Or did it start earlier? I didn't like where this was going. Vanessa, Dad's been dead for 16 years. I know, she squeezed my hand, but Croft brought him up. In a pressure moment, that means he was on his mind. Maybe we should ask some questions about how Dad died. A chill that had nothing to do with the hospital air went through me. No, we can't go there. Why? Because it's painful? Or because you're afraid of what we might find? Her eyes were soft, but relentless. Lexi, I spent years believing a lie about you. I won't spend another minute ignoring a question that might put a traitor in prison. If there's a connection, we need to know. For Dad, for you. She was right. I knew she was right, but the thought of prying open that old wound, of potentially finding something rotten at the bottom of my father's memory, was terrifying. Before I could answer, The door opened again. It wasn't Fletcher. It was Colonel David Croft. He stood in the doorway, one arm in a sling, his face pale and drawn, but his posture erect. He wore a hospital gown and a robe, but he still carried an air of command. A uniformed guard, a different one, not Rook, stood behind him. Vanessa shot to her feet, positioning herself between Croft and the bed. "You're not welcome here." "It's all right, Ms. Morgan," Croft said, his voice the calm, reasonable baritone I knew so well. "I just came to see how she was, and to talk, man to man, as it were." His eyes met mine over Vanessa's shoulder. "May I have a moment? Alone? Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my sister," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. He inclined his head. "As you wish. I came to offer you a way out. Lexi, this doesn't have to end badly for you." "A way out?" Vanessa spat. "You mean a way to cover your tracks?" Croft ignored her, his gaze fixed on me. "Fletcher is a good investigator. He'll dig. He might even find things. But the narrative is already set. Mitchell, a grief-stricken, compromised commander, acted alone with a foreign extremist. I stopped him, at great personal risk. You assisted bravely, but were overcome by the chemical agent. It's a clean story. The president is already being briefed on this version. It provides closure, a villain, and a hero. The country needs that. And what do I get in this clean story?" I asked, my heart a cold, hard stone in my chest. "Your career, your reputation, a promotion, even. The Sentinel program, revitalized and expanded. With you as a deputy director, no more lies to your family. Your service recognized. Finally," and he paused, "your father's name stays clean." There it was, the threat, velvet-gloved, but unmistakable. "What about my father?" Vanessa demanded. Croft's eyes flicked to her, then back to me. "Robert Morgan was a great patriot, but patriots sometimes have to make hard choices. Choices that can be misinterpreted by those who don't understand the larger game. His file could be read in unflattering ways. I've ensured it isn't. I'd like to keep it that way, for his memory, for your mother, for both of you." He was offering me a bribe and threatening to slander my dead father if I refused. The sheer, calculated vileness of it took my breath away. "Get out," I whispered. "Lexi, be reasonable. This is the real world. This is how it works. You can be a broken, discredited analyst accusing a war hero, dragging your father's name through the mud, and likely facing charges yourself for the unauthorized Sierra Base lockdown and the destruction of government property. Or you can be a hero with your family's legacy intact, doing the real, necessary work of keeping this country safe from the shadows. The choice is yours." He stood there, waiting, a monument to cynical realpolitik. He believed he'd already won. He believed I'd see the sense in it. I looked at Vanessa. Her face was a mask of fury, but her eyes were on me, waiting. She would back whatever choice I made, even if it meant a fight that would ruin us. I thought of my father, the smell of his pipe tobacco, the way he'd toss me in the air, his laughter, the closed casket, the unasked questions. Could I protect a memory if it was built on a lie he'd hate? I thought of Mitchell, willing to poison a city for his son. Of Varga, viewing genocide as a market correction. Of Croft, seeing patriotism in mass murder. I thought of the key in my pocket, the one I'd built to kill, the one I'd broken to save. I looked at Croft, at his confident, paternal expression, and I made my choice. "Special Agent Fletcher?" I called out, my voice clear and loud in the quiet room. Croft's smile didn't falter, but a coldness entered his eyes. The door opened immediately. Fletcher stood there, not looking surprised. He had a file in his hand. Behind him were two more serious-looking men in suits. "Colonel Croft," Fletcher said, "I'm glad you're here. Saves us a trip to your room." Croft turned, his demeanor shifting to one of slightly annoyed authority. "Fletcher, I was just checking on my analyst." "I'm sure you were," Fletcher said dryly. He held up a digital tablet. "We traced the encrypted burst from Sierra Base, the one with the Dalecarlia coordinates. It was sent using a command-level cipher that was personally assigned to you, Colonel." "And the receiving node?" "A satellite phone registered to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. A shell company that, upon some vigorous persuasion of its banker, was found to be wholly owned by a trust. A trust whose sole beneficiary is one David Allen Croft. The color drained from Croft's face. The confident mask crumbled, revealing the furious, cornered man beneath. That's impossible. The encryption was flawless. The cutouts were adequate for hiding from accountants, not for hiding from a directed forensic search when we know what we're looking for. Fletcher said, "We also have a statement from Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Rook, who witnessed you shoot an unarmed Commander Mitchell after he had lowered his weapon, and who heard you outline your plan to murder the Morgan sisters and claim credit. He's decided his oath is to the Constitution, not to a traitor." Croft stood frozen, his mind visibly racing, looking for an exit that wasn't there. He looked from Fletcher to the other agents, to me, his eyes finally landing on me with a hatred so pure it was almost awe-inspiring. "You stupid girl," he hissed. "You have no idea what you've done. The program, the protection it offered nothing but lies and death," I said, meeting his gaze. "And my father, wherever he is, would be ashamed to have ever called you his friend." Something broke in Croft then. A lifetime of calculated control shattered. "Your father," he snarled, the words dripping with venom. "You want to know about your saintly father, Robert? He wasn't a patriot. He was a coward. He found out about a plan, an early version, a small thing, a test in Moldova. He was going to expose it, expose me. He gave me no choice." The room went utterly silent. The beeping of the monitor seemed obscenely loud. "What are you saying?" Vanessa's voice was a ghost of a sound. Croft's lips pulled back in a grimace that was almost a smile. The car crash wasn't an accident. It was a necessity. He was going to ruin everything. For what? For a handful of foreign nobodies? So, I made sure he had an accident, and I've been protecting his memory for you ever since. A final kindness to an old friend. The world tilted. The air vanished from the room. I heard Vanessa's choked gasp, felt my own heart stutter in my chest. The foundation of my life, the tragedy that had shaped it, the ghost I'd revered, crumbled into dust, revealing a darker, more monstrous truth beneath. Croft had killed my father. The rage that erupted in me was white-hot, blinding. It overrode the pain, the weakness, the drugs. I was halfway out of the bed, the four-stand rattling, before Vanessa and one of Fletcher's agents caught me. "You monster!" I screamed, the sound raw and guttural. "You murdered him. You." Croft just looked at me, a strange, exhausted satisfaction in his eyes. He'd finally said it, the last secret, the ultimate leverage, now worthless. So he'd spend it on spite. Fletcher moved between us, his face like granite. "Colonel David Croft, you are under arrest for the murders of Robert Morgan and James Mitchell, for conspiracy to commit acts of terrorism, for treason, and for about 100 other charges we'll read to you downstairs. You have the right to remain silent," he continued the Miranda warning. But the words were a buzz in my ears. I was staring at Croft, at the man who had been my mentor, my father's friend, my sister's savior, a murderer, a traitor, the architect of all our pain. As the agents handcuffed his good arm and led him from the room, he didn't look back. The door closed. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the sound of my ragged breathing and Vanessa's soft, shattered weeping. She had sunk into the chair, her face in her hands. I slumped back against the pillows, the fury draining away, leaving a vast, hollow emptiness. The truth was worse than I could have imagined. My work, my life, my father's death. All threads pulled by the same corrupt, treacherous hand. Fletcher approached the bed. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. "We suspected about your father. The file was too clean, but we had no proof until he gave it to us. It'll be part of the case." "Will it stick?" Vanessa asked, looking up, her face tear-streaked but fierce. "Or will some other patriot decide it's all too messy?" "It'll stick," Fletcher said grimly. "The financial trail, Rook's testimony, the recorded conversation in this room, and his confession to your father's murder. He's going to a supermax, and he's never coming out. The story will be told, the right story." He looked at me. "You'll both need to testify. It will be hard. The world will know about your father, about you. The Sentinel program will be dismantled, its files audited. It's the end of that life, Morgan." I nodded slowly. "The end of the lies, the end of the shadows." "Good." Fletcher gave a curt nod and left, leaving us alone with the devastating, liberating truth. Vanessa came to sit on the edge of the bed. She took my hand again. We didn't speak for a long time. There were no words adequate for the chasm that had just opened beneath us, or for the bridge we had built across it in the last 3 days. Finally, she spoke. He was a hero, you know. I looked at her, confused. Dad, he found out. He was going to stop it. Even then, he died, trying to do the right thing. That's who he was, not the lie Croft told us. The truth. She was right. Croft had taken his life, but he hadn't taken his choice. My father had chosen to stand against the darkness, even at the cost of everything, just as I had, just as Vanessa had. The tears came then, hot and silent, for the father I'd lost, for the sister I'd found, for the innocence gone forever. We cried together in the sterile hospital room, as the afternoon sun slanted through the blinds. Later, when the tears were spent, I looked at her. What now? Now, Vanessa said, wiping her eyes with the heel of her hand, a determined glint returning to her gaze. Now, we get you out of this hospital. We go home. We tell Mom the truth, all of it. And then, she managed a small, shaky smile. Then, I think I'm going to change my specialty to national security law. And you're going to write a book. A very accurate, very heavily lawyered book. We're going to make sure nothing like this ever happens in the shadows again. It was a plan, a new mission, not in the shadows, but in the light. Together, I looked out the window. The sky was clearing to a deep, endless blue. Somewhere out there, a city was alive, drinking its water, unaware of the precipice it had skirted. Somewhere, a corrupt man was in a cell, and somewhere, a ghost could finally rest. I squeezed my sister's hand. Okay, I said, let's go home. End of chapter 6, and the novel, word count. 10. 200 characters. EPL 6 months later, the congressional hearing room was packed. A sea of dark suits, flashing cameras, and the low murmur of anticipation. I sat at the witness table, Vanessa beside me as my personal counsel. We were nearly identical, dark blue suits. A statement, Senator Walsh, the chair of the Select Committee, gavelled the room to order. This committee will come to order. The first witness is Ms. Alexis Morgan. Ms. Morgan, you are reminded that you are under oath. I looked at the senators, at the cameras, at the public gallery. My mother was there, in the front row, her face proud and heartbroken all at once. She knew the truth now. It had been hard, but it had brought us closer than we'd been in years. I looked down at my prepared statement, then pushed it aside. I didn't need it. Senators, I began, my voice clear and steady in the hushed room. My name is Alexis Morgan. For 3 years, I worked for a secret NSA program called Sentinel. I broke codes to stop terrorists, and in doing so, I helped uncover a conspiracy of betrayal that reached the highest levels of my own organization. This is what happened. I told the story, not the classified details, but the human ones. The sister who thought I was a failure, the mentor who was a murderer, the father who died a hero, the day a city almost died. I told them about the lies we tell for security, and the truths that are the only real security we have. When I finished, the room was silent. Then, from the public gallery, someone began to clap. Slowly, then others joined. It wasn't allowed, but no one stopped it. Senator Walsh leaned into his microphone. Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Your courage and your sister's is a testament to the best of this country. As we stood to leave, an aide handed Vanessa a note. She read it, then showed it to me. It was from the Attorney General's office. Laszlo Varga had been apprehended at a private airfield in Switzerland. He was fighting extradition, but the case was airtight. The money trail, fueled by Croft's testimony in a desperate plea bargain, led straight to him. Justice, it seemed, was a patient hunter. Outside, on the Capitol steps, the sun was shining. Vanessa slipped on a pair of sunglasses. So, book tour or beach first? Beach, I said, breathing in the clean, free air. Definitely the beach. She linked her arm through mine. I thought you'd say that. As we walked down the steps, a familiar, deep, thrumming sound echoed off the marble buildings. We looked up. A pair of BLACKHAWK helicopters flew in formation over the National Mall, heading out for a training exercise. Vanessa tensed, her grip on my arm tightening. I watched them go, the machines that had been my cage and my salvation. Then I looked at my sister, at the city alive around us. "It's okay," I said quietly. "They're on our side." This time, I believed it.